Salamlar. Hamınızı salamlayıram. İlk növbədə çox sağ olun ki, gəlmisiniz. Hamımızı başa düşürük. Saat 10-da, saat 9-da, səhər 6-cı gün çox da asan iş deyil. Dünən də möhtəşəm bizim açılışımız olub və təxminən biz fikirləşirik bir 7 min insan gəlib dünənləri, qonağımız olub dünənləri və bugün çox maraqlı, möhtəşəm bizim açılışımız olacaq. Artıq GameSummit başlayıb və növbəti 2 gün ərzində çox maraqlı proqramımız olacaq. Artıq biz hazırıq ki, konferansımızı başlayaq və bizim rəsmi qonaqlarımız da olacaq, birazdan sonra tanış olarsınız. Və bugünkü host, açılış bizim Rəmi aparacaq. Amma ilk növbədə istərdim Fuad müəllimi də təqdim edeyim. Fuad müəllimi bu GameSummit'in yaradıcıdır və bir neçə maraqlı mesajımız olacaq sizə birazdan. Fuad müəllim, buyurun. Fuad, baxın. Bir də qeyd etmək istəyirdim ki, bizdə konferans 2 dildə aparılacaq, İngilis dilində, Azərbaycan dilində. Çünki bizim xarici qonaqlarımız da var. Buyurun.
Salam aleyküm, herkes. Sizi görmenizi çok şadam. Welcome to GameSummit, and I will talk in English because we will have speakers from different countries, and I will be glad to introduce you one of the best MCs, and he is one of the greatest game advisor and indie game advisor in the world. This is Rami Ismail, and please, he will be our MC for today for GameSummit. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you, and
the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, welcome to the 2024 Game Summit. I'm Rami Ismail. I'm an independent game developer and I am a public speaker. I have worked in 140 countries on hundreds of indie games. I've shipped 20 games myself. And I mostly try and help people around the world learn how to make better games, good games in good ways with good people. I'm very excited to be here in Azerbaijan. It is my first time here. And I'm hearing lots of great stories about the growing games industry here. I understand there's also government representatives that are going to be here. So seeing all this collaboration, all this excitement about the Azerbaijani game developers community is really exciting. I'm originally from the Netherlands. I am Dutch-Egyptian. So I've traveled quite far to be here. And I'm very excited to go check out all of the games that are here. I'm very excited to talk to all of you. I'm very excited to hear all of your stories. But also we have an amazing program today. We have different speakers from all around the world. We have speakers who are going to be talking about creativity, about how to make a good game. We're going to have speakers that are going to talk about the business of making games. We're going to have speakers who are going to talk about the finance of making games, how to monetize your games, how to make your games become hits. So we're going to have an amazing program, lots of speakers, each of them with a completely different story. I'm very excited to be here. I think I'm also the person who's going to do the first talk today, so we're going to switch into that talk right after the introduction. But before we start, just a real quick check from me. How many of you are currently game developers? Just by raise of hand. Cool. How many of you are studying game development? How many of you are gamers? Nice. Welcome. Welcome. So a lot of the program here at the start of the day is going to be about the business of making games, the creativity of making games, how to make video games. So it is going to be very much focused on the science and art of making games. That means it won't be as flashy as the background here behind me, but we'll get through and talk a bit about how to make good games. Does that sound good for you? Yeah? Good. Let's go do it then. I think we'll switch straight into my presentation. If I can get the tech team to switch to the presentation. And then I need to check if the presentation is up on the screen. Not yet. Well, I'll fill that for a second while tech figures out how to get my presentation on the screen. The thing I want to talk about to all of you today is going to be about the production of video games. How to make a video game in a good way. With a creative team. I saw about half of you seem to be game developers. How many of you are like small teams, 3 to 5 people? How many of you are larger than that, like 10 people, 20 people? Okay, most of you are smaller teams then. That's super exciting. Small teams, I think, are some of the best opportunity you're going to get in the games industry. It is hard to make games. It's expensive to make games. So having a smaller team does really create that opportunity to make something that will do really well for you. When I started in games, we were just 2 people, me and my co-founder. And because we were only 2 people, we could make relatively small games. And when they were a hit, we actually made quite a lot of money because we were just 2 people. We didn't have that many people. And then as you grow, as you have your first hit game, your second hit game, having that smaller team grow really gives you the opportunity to make bigger and better games. So let me see if the clicker works. The clicker does work. My name is Rami Ismail. I'm a game developer. I used to run a game studio called Vlaambir. We made over 20 hit games. Beyond that, I write a newsletter and a blog called Leveling the Playing Field. I'm an advisor and a tool creator, so I made tools like PressKit. I used to run a panel called Number One Reason to Be, which was a panel at the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco. And I travel around the world helping independent game development teams make better games, earn money with their games, grow their team, and be just generally better game developers. So before I start, there's one thing I always want to say when I give a talk, and it's an important thing to say. This is a very large stage that I'm standing on. And because it's very large, it might sound like I have a level of truth to what I'm saying, a level of correctness to what I'm saying, that is not necessarily true. When I started in games, it was 2010, almost 15 years ago. And the best way to get into games at that point was to make Flash games. Right? This was before mobile. This was before Steam was a big thing. This was before Xbox and PlayStation were doing indie games. So, in a way, Flash games back then was the best way of doing things. Since then, I've been in the games industry for a very long time. I've worked with Microsoft on creating ID at Xbox. I've worked with Nintendo, with PlayStation, with Steam, with Apple. I've worked with Google. I've worked with every sort of large company in games. But I do want you to remember that the way game development works here in Azerbaijan might be different from how it works in other places. The things that happen to me might not happen to you. So what I want you to do, instead of just believing everything I say, I want you to think about what I'm saying and then think about how that affects you. About what if this is useful for you? What if this helps you? What if this sounds true to you? And if there's anything I say that you don't quite believe, anything I say that to you sounds, I understand why he says that, but I don't think that's right, please ignore what I said. Do it your way, and if it works, give me a phone call and tell me that it worked, right? I still learn new things every day in game development. So let's talk about game development. What are we doing as game developers and why are we doing it? These are 2 very important questions. What are we doing is, well, we're magicians. We do magic tricks. Think about it. What is your favorite game? Any favorite game, like a Final Fantasy, a Grand Theft Auto, a Call of Duty, a Sword and Sorcery, like an indie game. What is your favorite game? Think about that favorite game. Think about your favorite character from a video game. Think about the highest high score you ever got in a video game. The developers that made that game played a magic trick. And the magic trick was really simple. You believe those places were true. But your favorite character from any video game, they don't exist. Your favorite high score is just a number. The story that you love is just a bunch of text. When you think about it, our job is to be a magician. We do a magic trick. And the trick is very simple. The gamer tells us, we want you to make us believe something. And then we make that person believe something. It's a magic trick. And we do that because people want to be entertained. Because people want to learn something. Because people want to feel something. So when we make games, the biggest questions to ask is what are we doing and why are we doing it? So game development is a creative development. It's not the same as writing traditional software. It's not the same as making a website. Very often when you do software, when you do a website, you know what you're going to build. But games are very big. They're very complicated. They're a combination of art, of sound, of writing, of music, of game design, of code. And that collaboration makes it that games are somewhat unpredictable. When you start making a game, you don't exactly know where it's going to go. That makes it creative development. And creative development works a little different than other types of development. To make sure we get that right, you do production. And production is simply the process of making sure that this game is going to ship and is going to release. So when you think about that, you should have two big forces in your game studio, two people that are more important than any other people in your studio. Two people. One person is your creative director. And your creative director is the person on the team who protects the vision of the game. They protect the heart of the game. They protect the creativity of the game. They make sure that this game is good. And that's their only job. They have no other job than to make sure that your entire team is moving in the same direction. The other person at the top is your lead producer. Your lead producer only has one job. They do not care about how good the game is. They do not care about how fun the game is. They care about one thing, and one thing only. And the thing they care about is that the game ships on time and on budget. And if it ships on time and on budget, they did their job right. Because the person who's defending the fun was the creative director. If you have these two people on your team, you can make good video games. If it is unclear who these people are on your team, you will not make good video games. So, if we separate out these two forces, you have a game development. And it starts at the start and it goes to the end. You start with an idea, and at the end of the game, you have a finished product. But the reality of game development isn't quite like this. The reality of game development is that there's many different parts of game development. You have your programmers, you have your designers, you have your artists, you have your sound team. And all of them have different important moments in their production. And this is not actually how game development works. Game development looks more like this. Game development is messy. Things don't always go in one direction. Sometimes art is done before a level is done. Sometimes the level is done before the art is done. Game development can be very complicated. So let's simplify it. Let's say game development consists of three parts. At the start, the blue part, you have your idea, your concept. And you know what kind of game you want to make. You know the idea. The idea is we want to make a racing game. The idea is we want to make a racing game that feels cool, that feels fun. Okay, what kind of fun? Well, it might be a racing game about drifting, or it might be a racing game about jumping, or you have an idea, something that you believe, you really believe somewhere in your head, you believe this is going to be a good game. Then after that blue part, you have a prototype. You can play it. It's fun. It's cool. Maybe it's not. Then you move on to the next idea. You build that, and in the green part, what you're doing is you're trying to figure out what exactly the game needs to be good. At the end of that, you'll have a vertical slice. And then you go into the red part, and the red part is development. Now you build the game, it's the production, right? If you separate that out, for those two people at the top of your studio, for your creative director and your producer, this is kind of what it looks like. In that first part, your creative director is just experimenting. And you should not put any pressure on that creative director to make something good. Their job is to try, to experiment, to do things that might not work. That's how you get to new ideas. That's how you get to innovation. That's how you get to creative games. That's how you get to new games. You experiment. You don't try to replicate success. You don't just look at a hit game. No, what you do is you try. You have an idea and you try that. Your producer, at the same time, they want that creative director to start defining what it is that you're making. What is it that you're building? How is it going to be good? Why are people going to want to play this? So even though your creative director is trying to experiment, your producer is trying to lock down what you're going to be building. Now in that second stage, now the creative director wants to define. They now have to, because if you don't define what the game is, you get into trouble. If one part of your team is trying to build one game and the other part of your team is trying to build the other, it's going to get really complicated, and it's going to cost you a lot of money and a lot of time to fix it. So that second part, your creative director is going to define. Your producer is trying to produce, which means they just want your team to make stuff, make art, make sound, make music, make story, make character, make levels. So your producer is now pushing your team forward. Your creative director is trying to figure out, okay, how many levels do we need? How many characters, how many weapons, how many cars? What do we need for this game to be good? And then at the final stage, your creative is trying to get more. They want more levels, more story, voice acting. They want to add more stuff. Your producer is trying to limit it. They're trying to make sure that the game is done on time. They're trying to make sure that you're not taking any risks, right? So if that is what game development looks like, then, you know, in your creative and your creative is always ahead. They always want more, and your producer is always saying no. That's their job. Just get the game done. So, with those two things in mind, let's continue to how you actually set up a game. You have your structure, you have your preparation, and these two things, with this in mind, with this timeline in mind, this idea of prototype, vertical slice, production, let's take a look at game development. So the first thing we want to figure out is we want to define that game. We want to build that prototype. Now, prototypes, how many of you here have done prototyping before? How many of you have built a prototype for a game before? Okay, there's one really important thing about prototypes that people often misunderstand. When you build a prototype, what is the most important thing about the prototype? It's not that it's good. It's not that it's well coded. In fact, when I work with programmers and we're prototyping, you know what I tell my programmers? I promise them at the start that no matter what they program, no matter how beautiful the code is, I will delete all the code that they've written when we're done with the prototype. Because I want them to write bad code. I want them to write fast code. I want them to write dirty code, not clean code, not beautiful code, not reusable code. I don't want them to program like we're going to ship this. I want them to program this as quickly as possible so that we can check the thing we're checking for. The prototype is just a proof. I have an idea. Wouldn't it be fun if I had a game where I was running to chase a car? I don't know if that's fun. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a prototype. And I'm going to build that prototype in 2 days. And it's going to be really ugly. But at the end of that prototype, I will know whether it's fun to chase a car. And if it's fun to chase a car, I'll spend another week. And after I spend that week, and it's still fun, I'll spend a month. But my goal with the prototype is always very simple. When it's still ugly, when it's still broken, can I get people to sit down and play for 5 minutes? Just 5 minutes. Can I get them to sit at a computer and play for 5 minutes? And if I can, I'll build it more. I'll make it prettier. I'll add some goals, I'll add some quests, I'll add some levels, some sounds, some art. And then I'll test it again. And if after testing people play for 15 minutes, then I continue working. But if I can't get them to play for 15 minutes, then I quit. I move on to the next idea. Because game development is hard, it's unpredictable. Ideas are easy, but making something is hard. So I try to test as quickly as possible. As quickly as possible. So when you're trying to do creative work, there's two questions you should answer, which is why are we making it and why would somebody want to play it? Why do I think this game is going to be fun? And why would somebody else think it is fun? So let's talk about our why. We're game developers. We make video games. All of us make video games because we want to. Because I will tell you, in most countries, my dad is Egyptian. Telling my dad that I was going to be a game developer, he did not like that. He wanted me to be an engineer. He wanted me to be a lawyer. He wanted me to be a doctor. He said, get a real job. Stop playing the Nintendo and make some video and get a real job, right? But I wanted to make video games. I was stubborn. And I kept working at it until one day I could show my bank account to my father, and he said, okay, you know what? That's good. So we know why we want to make games. We want to make games because we love games. Why do we want to make this game? This game, the game that you're working on. Why do you want to make that? So let's talk a bit about the structure of a good video game. At the heart of every video game is a core, a heart. I call it the nugget. And the core, very simple, is a one sentence of what a game is. And it's not the story, it's not the levels, it's not the characters, it's not the abilities. No, it's usually a feeling. It's usually a feeling. Like in an Assassin's Creed game, you always want to feel like this historical person that's behind the scenes affecting reality, right? In a racing game, you always want to feel like you're really good at racing, even if in reality, you're probably not, right? In a puzzle game, you want to feel smart. In every game, there's a feeling at the heart of it, a truth, a question, something abstract, something a little small, a little vulnerable, a little interesting, something that is true about your game. It's not a good game, because every game wants to be a good game, right? It's not an RPG, because there's many RPGs. What is special about your RPG? If 5 years from now, somebody played your video game, right? Your game comes out and somebody plays it and they love it. And if 5 years from now, they've forgotten the name of your game, and they talk to their best friend and they say, oh, I played this game 5 years ago. I played this game 5 years ago. It was black and white, kinda, mostly. And you went and you had to like stamp passports, right? If you play indie games, you know that that's Papers, Please. That's the game. And you can't mistake that game. Clearly that is Papers, Please. There's no other game like that. How would somebody that played your game today, if they forgot the name of your game, how would they describe it to their best friend 5 years from now? That's your core. And as soon as you know your core, you can start thinking about the mechanics. And the mechanics are the computer part of this. That's the programmer's part of this. The programmer's part, it's objective. If I press this button, this happens. If I am on the ground, I can jump. And the mechanics, that's where our actual magic trick happens. The declarative layer is the way we explain our mechanics to people. Because think about it this way, you don't have to explain everything to your audience. If you've played Dark Souls or Elden Ring or any of games like that, you know what a very easy way is to show the difference between mechanics and declarative? A boss has health, right? It has a certain amount of health. And when that health hits 0, you win. That's how it works, very straightforward. If you've ever played a Dark Souls game or an Elden Ring game or a game like that, there's a health bar, right? The health bar shows how much time is left to beat the boss. What if you couldn't see the health bar? What if there was no health bar in Dark Souls game? Would that feel different? Would that be a different video game? It would be. Because in a Dark Souls game, a lot of the tension comes from knowing where you are and where the boss is. But if you wouldn't know how much health the boss has left, you would play differently. So the mechanics is that the boss has health, and that when the health hits 0, you win. Declaratively, though, showing the health bar makes a difference. And when it comes to that, we cheat a lot. As game developers, we cheat all the time. In many shooter games, if you have a health bar, that health bar isn't every part is worth the same amount of HP. No, we say the first part of your health bar is like 70% of your health. And then the final part of your health bar looks like 10%, but it's actually 30%. So that it feels like you almost die, but you don't. You don't. But it feels cool. In a FIFA game, the goalkeepers are actually programmed to be worse in the last 5 to 10 minutes of the match. Why? People love last-minute goals. So we'll just make them happen. If you are in charge of everything because you are the developer, then you're in charge of everything. And our job as game developers is not to do truth. Our goal is to do magic, to do a magic trick. And so for FIFA, we want you to have a good football match. And we will make it happen for you. So when you develop, you always want to make sure that everything in your game, it moves towards that core. For FIFA, we want people to feel like there was a beautiful match of football. And what does a beautiful match of football have? A last-minute goal. So we will increase the odds of a last-minute goal so that people will get that last-minute goal. So that people will feel good about their match. Because at the end, it's about that core. It's not about the mechanics. It's not about the declarative. It's not about the art. It's about when I play your game, what will I remember? Right? And so every part of your team is focused on a different part of development. That core, that's the job of the creative director. The creative director protects that core. Every part of game development, they protect that core. Your designer, your programmer, they're sitting on the mechanics. Your writer, your artist, your audio, they're sitting on the declaration. So why do players play a game? Well, players play a game because they want to believe in our magic trick. They want to believe in that high score. They want to believe in that world, in those characters. They want to believe in all these things that aren't true. Baldur's Gate doesn't exist. Mordin from Mass Effect was never real. And that high score is just a number. But that's okay. Because as long as it's true to the player, it matters to them. I play Destiny a lot. That character in Destiny, for me, it matters. And I know it's just data. I know it's just polygons. But to me, that's 10 years of my life in a video game. And I love that video game. And I spent hours playing that video game. So it matters to me even though it's fake. They come to us for the magic trick. Because the player wants something. They want a good experience, right? So they have an intent. They have a goal. They want something. That intent, they translate into a button press. They will press a button. That button then goes into the game, and from the game, it goes into feedback, the screen, the sound, and that goes back into the player's mind. This map is one of the most important things you can know as a game developer. Because it's very simple. The mental model where the player sits, that's what they think is true. The input is what they want to happen. Then the black box is where it actually happens. That is the game itself. And then it goes back into the player's brain via the visuals, the graphics, the sound, yeah? So the important part of the video game, where does it happen? Where's the video game? Is it in the input? Does the video game happen in the black box? Does it happen in the output? No, it happens in the player's brain. It only happens in the player's brain. Everything the player believes is true is true. Have you ever played Pokemon? Do you remember that people used to say that if you press the B button on your Game Boy exactly as the ball wiggled, that it would be a bigger chance that you caught the Pokemon? Was that true? It wasn't. But we did it anyway, because we believed it was true. When we make games, all that matters is what the player believes. So that final goal, that last minute goal in FIFA, it doesn't matter that we cheated, because they don't know. When people play a shooter game, how many of you play shooter games sometimes? A Call of Duty, a Battlefield, something like that. If you play the single player mode of those games, how often do you get shot from behind? Never. We don't shoot you from behind. People hate it when they get shot from behind. It's awful. So what we do if AI shoots from behind, we'll make them miss so that you can see the bullet and you can turn around and you can shoot back. Because that's more fun. We cheat. Because the goal is for players to enjoy the game. So the entire game takes place up there in the mental model, not anywhere else. And so when we build the game, the thing we should focus on with the core is what's happening in the player's brain. So this part right here, that's the declarative layer. And this part right here, that's the mechanical layer. And when you think of a game as loops, every game takes place in a number of loops. The 1 second loop is every moment to moment. The 5 second loop is every 5 seconds. The 15 second loop is every 15 seconds. When you think about it, where games really happen is on the switching points between those things. So on the 1 second loop, you're playing a shooter game. What are you doing? Well, you're trying to dodge, you're trying to shoot, you're trying to aim. But on the 5 second loop, what you're trying to do is you're trying to find a good position, you're trying to find cover. In the 15 second loop, you might be thinking about getting a health pack, you might be thinking about switching something. Same thing for a strategy game. On the 1 second, you're trying to move some units. In the 5 seconds, you're trying to make sure you keep in charge of what's happening. In the 15 second, you might be thinking about how to find an opening. In FIFA, in the 1 second, you're trying to dodge a character. In the 5 seconds, you're trying to make a pass. In the 15 seconds, you're trying to move things on. This model you might have seen before if you studied video games, the MDA framework, mechanics, dynamics, aesthetics, very similarly to the previous model. This is actually not all that complicated if you think about it the same way I just explained to you. The core, which is in the middle, the dynamics, that is the most important part. Not what you program, not how it looks. What matters is when all that comes together, what does it make people feel? Why would they love your game? Just making something that is like Candy Crush, it doesn't work. Because nobody will care. There is already a Candy Crush. But what if you can make a Candy Crush that makes people feel something different? What if you could make a football game that would make people feel more excited? What if you could make something that makes people feel something different? That's why people play video games. So when you think about these things, the most important thing to answer to yourself is why? Why do I want to make this game, and why would anybody want to play this game? So, how do we answer that question? Well, the first thing is we do that prototype. And for the prototype, we're looking for those two things. When you're building this prototype, the only question you're trying to answer is, will somebody sit down and play for just 5 minutes? Just 5 minutes. And then after that, we try to figure out how do we build a game around this? How do we build the glue that holds this game together, right? And we do that through something we call prototyping, and prototyping is part of iterative game development. How many of you have heard the phrase iterative development before? So this is one of the most important things you'll ever learn about making games, which is we don't know what we're doing. When we start on a game, we have an idea, and the best thing you can learn is build it as quickly, as dirtily, as poorly coded, as ugly as you can possibly make it. Because after that, you can try whether it works. And if it works, you build a bigger version. If that works, you build a bigger version. And if that works, you build a bigger version until you are done. You do not start to make a video game by making a video game. That is the worst way to make a game, and you will spend tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to make a thing that you don't know works. So you try to build a small version, and then you do it again. So you want to be reckless. You want to speed up things. So when you want to change whether a character walks slowly or rapidly, you don't change the walking speed by 1 or by 0.5. No, you double it. You half it. You triple it. Big numbers, big changes. Move quick, keep moving. And then when it starts to work, when it starts to feel good, you figure out what is good about it. What is special about it? Why does this work? And how can I keep building on this? And as soon as you figure that out, as soon as you know why it sticks, why it's interesting, you build more of that. And the most important thing at this point is that you and your team figure out what you believe this game is. Is this a game about speed? Is this a game about feeling smart? What is it? Can we agree what this game is? And if you can, you lock that in. You write it, you put it in a document, you get everybody to look at it, and then everybody signs it. Everybody says, okay, this is what we're making. And when you say that, you can move on to the next stage. When your team locks in, when your team buys in, that's when you commit to making the game. That's when you can try and get a publisher. That's when you try and get money. That's when you go to companies around the world and you ask them for $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $1 million, $2 million. Not before that. Before that, you're trying to figure out what you're building. But as soon as you know, you start moving forward. You get this momentum and you keep that momentum going. This is the part where money becomes a real question in game development. And when money becomes a real part of game development, you want to move and keep that momentum going, because now your team is growing, so you're paying salary. If you're paying salary, the more time you spend, the more time you're burning. So you don't want to move to this part until you know what you're building. So then you build the vertical slice. The vertical slice is a tiny part of your game, 5 minutes usually, that you make at the level of your final game. You put the art, you put the sound, you put the music, you put the story, you put everything in. But you only build just a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes of your game, a tiny part, a level, a section. Just a tiny part, but you make it as good as you can make it. Because this is what we're going to use for our trailer. This is what we're going to use at E3 to show, well, not at E3 anymore. E3 doesn't exist anymore. This is what we're going to use at Gamescom, at any of the other shows. This is what we're going to use to convince people that they want to play this game. You haven't built the game yet. You just built this tiny part, and you build it to prove to yourself that you can make it. So when you think about it, for the vertical slice, if you split it, you have your features and your content. The features are the most important thing. Does it work? The content, you can make endless content. There's an infinite amount of content you can make, but you don't want to be thinking about content too much. For the vertical slice, you just want to prove that you can do that level of content. I'll skip this part, but I do want to talk about this part real quick. For your production, there are stages of production that you're going to go through right now, and I think what's really important is for people to understand that every part of game development, that blue part, that green part, that red part, you have different goals. And because the goals are different, you might need different people. A programmer that's really good at shipping a game might not be good at prototyping. An artist that's really good at 2D art might be great for concept, might not be the right person for production. That doesn't mean you have to get rid of those people, but it does mean that you can think about how do you structure your development in such a way that you have work for people at all times. Can you work on 2 games? Can you make sure that there's space to move on to the next thing at the same time? Or can you make sure that your production uses the people that you have in the best way possible? After you create your vertical slice, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to build a walking skeleton. You're going to build the basics of your game, just the basics, everything you need for your game to work. And then after that, you're going to add everything that will be good to have. And then after that, you build the rest. So you split your game into 3 parts. What we need, the musts, then what you could have, or should have, the shoulds, then what you could have, and then what you won't have. Making sure that your team is clear on who's in charge of what is really important there. So you have your creative director, you have your producer. Make sure that people know, if you have a question about art, who's the boss about art? Who's the boss about sound? Who's the boss about narrative, about code? Who is in charge of things? So that you never get stuck arguing about how we're going to do things. Always put somebody in charge of something. If you never have done a RACI chart for your team before, it's a good exercise. It's RACI. It's an organizational exercise to make sure that your team understands who's in charge of what. So if you've never done a RACI chart before, go sit down with your team and do that racy chart so you can set up good lines and methods of communication so that your team always is working towards making the best game possible. And then finally, you want to set up your timeline. Your timeline consists of 4 parts. We've just done the vertical slice. After the vertical slice, you do feature complete, content complete, and release candidate. Has anybody ever heard the term feature complete? Has anybody ever heard the term alpha? An alpha for a game. The beta? A beta for a game? Feature complete is what we call alpha. Every feature in the game works. Content complete is generally what we call beta. All the content is in the game. Release candidate is the version of the game that we send for certification. It goes to Xbox, it goes to PlayStation, it goes to Apple, to Google. Steam doesn't really do certification, so they have their own thing. And when you think about it, every game kind of has its own ratio. There's a part of pre-production, and then there's a part of production. There's a part of vertical slice, then there's a part of feature complete, and then there's a part of content complete. And every game kind of has its own. But if you look at these, if you think about it, you could tell what kind of game each of these games is. Which one of these games is a Candy Crush clone? Well, a Candy Crush clone would have very little pre-production. They're just cloning a game. They're just copying something. So pre-production would be really small. And then Candy Crush also doesn't have a lot of features, so features would be very small. And then after that, production would be quite long, relatively, right? But if you're trying to make something very experimental, like a real-time strategy game, well then, your pre-production will be very long, and features would take a very long time to make. While your content production would be much quicker. You only have a limited number of units. So based on that, you can actually guess what kind of genre these games are. That also means that if you're pitching your game to publishers, if your timeline doesn't fit the type of game you're building, they will not fund you. You will not get money for your game. So you want to prioritize things the right way, and you can do that by using must, should, could, and won't as a prioritization schedule. So you get all your features and you put them in this, or you can use something like a priority matrix where you just say what is urgent, what is not urgent, what's important, and what is not important. Prioritization and timelines are not science. So there's not the right way of doing it. There is, however, wrong ways of doing it. So if your timeline does not fit your genre, it does not fit your game, you won't get money, and you won't build a good game. But you can't put things into a schedule and then expect things to work, which is why we try and keep iterating. You repeat this process over and over until it just all makes sense. At that point, you're making a video game. At that point, this is when publishers will give you money. The previous time, they'll start talking to you. This is where you get your money. At this point, you should be getting the $300,000. You should be getting the $500,000. At this point, you have committed on your site, in US dollars, usually about $160,000. Now, I don't know how much it costs right here to keep a team running for 4 to 6 months, but about 4 to 6 months is where this moment should happen in your game's development. And at that point, you get the rest of the money to develop the rest of the game. You commit to the goals of your game, you commit to the constraints of your game. We have so much time, we have this much money, and these are the goals we're trying to hit. At that point, you get into the dance of game development. Very simple. You want to make sure that your team can zoom in and zoom out and make sure that they are doing what they have to be doing. Your creative director should always keep focus on, are we still building a game with the core that we believe in? Your producer should always be aiming to build a game that will ship on time. Those are the only 2 goals. There are no other goals. This is what we're trying to achieve. 2 final tips. If you are making a game, don't try to make a perfect game. One simple rule, the 70-20-5 rule. 70% of your game should be great, should be flawless. Sorry, other way around. 70% of your game does not have to be great, does not have to be flawless. You take your favorite game and think about how much of that game is actually great. RPGs, Baldur's Gate, Final Fantasy, Grand Theft Auto, 70% of the time you're just walking around. That part does not have to be good. 70% of BioShock is not great. 70% of Mass Effect is not great. 25% of the game needs to be good. Needs to be beautiful, needs to be interesting. 5% of your game needs to be great. That's the parts people will remember. If you try to build a game that's 100% great, you'll build a game that never feels great because it will always be at the same level. It'll never go up, it'll never go down. Great games choose when to be great. It's a choice, it's intentional. And the 50 before 50 rule, very simple. Before 50% of the time you have to build your game, you want to be more than 50% through building your game. You want to make sure that half of the work is done before you've run out of half of your time. If you do that, you'll have enough time to finish your video game. Let me skip these. The biggest mistakes I see people make. The glue is late. The glue is the part that holds your game together. Why are people playing your game? Are they trying to get more progression, more levels, more XP? Are they trying to explore more world? Are they trying to beat the next level? Why would people continue to play this little thing of 5 minutes that's interesting? The glue needs to be defined very early, because if you forget to make it, people will not understand why to continue playing the game. And then finally, the cost of alignment. How important is it that everybody exactly knows what we're doing? Are we going to write a document? Are we going to do a game design document? Are we going to do big timelines? Are we going to do a Jira? Are we going to do a Notion? Are we going to use all these expensive tools? No, you're a small team. If you're a small team, just get going. Make the video game. That's your documentation. If you're a large team, you're 20 people, please have good documentation. Have a Jira. Have some way to communicate. But think about what your team needs. Don't just look at what Valve is doing or what Insomniac is doing. All these massive companies are doing and try to replicate that. Don't listen to a company with 500 employees and then copy what they're doing. Think about what your team needs to be good at what your team does. Don't just copy things from people who are successful. If you want more information, more things to learn about game development, you can check that out on my website, www.ramiismail.com. I'm going to thank you so much for listening to this, I know, very in-depth talk about game development. And thank you for your time. I don't think we have time for Q&A, so if you have any questions, just find me at that website. In the meanwhile, it is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, which is going to be Shirley McFall, who's going to be speaking about Web3 in games and game design. Give a big round of applause for Shirley. Good luck.
Thank you so much, Rami. Thank you so much, everyone here today, to the organization for having me. It is my absolute pleasure to be here in your beautiful country, so thank you so, so much. My name is Shirley McFall. I am original from San Juan, Puerto Rico, but last year I moved to the Netherlands. I work in the Web3 space. I do research in Web3 and video games. I focus on design and culture, specifically how video games affect our culture and how culture affects the video games that we make. So, before we start, a little bit about me. Like I said, I worked on Web3, or I work on Web3, and I worked for the Puerto Rico Blockchain Trade Association. I was their Director of Education and Community Outreach until last year. It was a job that I absolutely loved. It gave me the opportunity to teach Web3 literacy all over the island and localized literacy, which means that I would teach it in Spanish, because Puerto Rico, we are Spanish speakers. I would also hold all types of different events all over the island where we would talk about not just Web3, but also blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies and all that jazz. So right now, that's what I do. I do public speaking in this sector, and I do research, and one of the things that I also do is I play video games. I have been a gamer my entire life, most, if not all of my research is focused in video games. So of course, when Web3 became a thing, it was immediately of my interest how could we use the Web3 technology to make video games better. Part of my background is cultural comparative studies. I'm also co-founder of the Puerto Rico Game Developers Association, so I've been part of video game development communities for almost a decade at this point. Okay, so Web3 and Web3 gaming. How many of you have heard about or know what Web3 is? By a show of hands, who knows what Web3 is? Okay, so I have a few hands. All right, so for those of you who don't know, and for those of you who do, we'll do a little refresher. Maybe you have seen a graphic like this on the internet. So when we talk about the web, which is the internet, back in the 90s, which I have had the privilege to pretty much live on the internet since the 90s, the internet was very different to what we have today. The web was what we call now the read-only web. This means that only a few people had access to actually putting things on the web. So they were called webmasters, right? And what users usually did was just go to the different websites and read the information. This web, or the point of the web, was to share information, for people to upload their information and for others to be able to find it from anywhere in the world. So the network began as pretty much an experiment that universities would use to communicate with each other. Then, in the 2000s, companies that began their journey in the 90s started to grow, and things like Facebook appeared, and Instagram. And these companies created platforms that are what we use today as social media platforms. So this is the social web, okay? And it's a place where we're able to upload information, we're able to read information, but we're also able to interact with that information. So it's dynamic, okay? We're able to comment on things, we're able to create our own content, and it's more of a communicative thing. The thing is that the companies that have built the platforms that we use for social media are centralized. And that means that they are the ones who get to make all the choices when it comes to how those companies work, how the content is delivered, what kind of content can go into the platforms. And this is not necessarily a problem. The problem is that these companies and these platforms have become so big and so important that they have become very limiting in terms of what us as users can and can't do on those platforms. And because the internet or the web, is a tool that has become so important for our daily lives, for our businesses, for everything we do, then, it would be nice for us to be able to have a say on what that is going. And that's where the Web 3.0 comes in. So the Web 3.0 is this idea of what the future of the web is going to look like, okay? So right now, we're still in the Web 2.0. We're still on the social web. And the Web 3.0 is just this future, maybe this is what we would like it to look like. This is what the type of web that we want to see. And that web is usually self-sovereign, you own your own data, is decentralized, it is privacy-driven, security-driven, and you can essentially have more control over everything you do and where you can go on the internet, as well as what you can post, where you can post it, all that stuff. So when I first heard about the Web 3.0, it was back 2020, and I didn't discover what it meant, or I didn't start thinking about what it could mean for video games until about 2021. And at that point, I was like, well, if the Web 3.0 is like this really cool new thing that we're starting to build now, what would that mean for video games? What if we could have all of these things associated to video games? What would that look like? So the thing that first occurred to me was, well, what video games already exist, they kind of already do what Web3 says it can do. And the first one that came to mind was one of my favorite games of all times, Pokemon. Who here plays Pokemon or has played Pokemon? So I see a few people. All right, excellent. So for those who don't know, Pokemon is a game where you catch little monsters, right? Oh, I'm sorry. I got confused with the slides. Okay, so let me back up a little bit. So the Web3 has made 3 promises to us, right? The 3 promises are essentially that we are. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I got confused with these slides. My apologies. Okay, so when we're talking about Web3 gaming, we're talking about an umbrella term, right? Where the games that are being played are more like community-driven. They're games that are decentralized, like I mentioned before, because it's on the decentralized web. And essentially, it's a term that includes digital games, gambling, esports, and the community. Now, the 3 promises that Web3 gaming makes are, or at least that they made back in 2021, are ownership, which is being able to own your own digital assets. It's interoperability, which means being able to use your digital assets through different communities, through different games, and being able to earn money while you play video games. So, okay, before we talk about digital ownership, which is really the most important point, in this presentation, we need to talk about non-fungible tokens. Non-fungible tokens, maybe you've heard about them, maybe not. Non-fungible tokens are this thing that is enabled by Web3 technologies. And maybe you've heard a lot of positive things or a lot of negative things about them. But at the end of the day, when we talk about NFTs, we're talking about, well, I have a really big definition here, which is really besides the point. The most important thing that we need to know about NFTs here is that an NFT is a tag or a receipt, a certificate, okay, that lives in a blockchain or a decentralized database, and that holds information about a digital item that is verifiable, it's traceable, and you can essentially know exactly who owns it. That is the most important thing. Thanks to NFTs, we're able to talk about digital ownership at all. Okay. See? There you go. So now, going back to me fantasizing about all the things that we can do with Web3, right, and what that could mean for gaming, well, then we can talk about Pokemon. Now we got to the slide that I thought was back then. Anyway, so Pokemon is this game where you catch these little monsters, and the little monsters are very unique. They have been very unique even since the first Pokemon game came out back in 1998. So they do this thing where each Pokemon that you capture has an original trainer, an OT. It's your name as a trainer. And then there is the ID number proper of the Pokemon that you captured. So that if you trade your Pokemon, the person who receives that Pokemon will have the Pokemon under your name, with the OT will be you, and that unique number. So these Pokemon are already identifiable. They're unique in their own way. And this is a feature that the game has kept even on the last iteration of the game, which was Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, released in 2022. And not only that, they have added additional characteristics that make the Pokemon completely unique. Pokemons are also interoperable. That means that you can take your Pokemons and send them to other versions of the game. Now, this is not entirely the case for every single Pokemon game, because there is a cutoff after the Game Boy Color versions to the Game Boy Advance versions. You couldn't move Pokemon from one to the other. But aside from that, since the Game Boy Advance versions of the game, technically, you can grab your starter from Pokemon Leaf Green, came out for the Game Boy Advance, and transfer that Bulbasaur, or that Charizard, or whatever your starter was, all the way to Pokemon Violet or Scarlet. And that is pretty cool, because that means then that Pokemons that have been with you for a decade at this point, like 4 years, can still be part of your Pokemon adventure. And that is one of the things that Web3 would enable for digital objects, or at least in theory, is what made a lot of sense to me when I first heard about Web3. Also, shout out to the Reddit user who created this chart. Making this chart is not easy. The Reddit community is incredible. They make this type of thing. And also, I would like to add that when looking for these charts, there are so many people talking about their Pokemon, right? They're digital little monsters that are only bits of information living in their games, and how important those monsters are to them, and how important it is to them to be able to bring them with them to the next generation. And I think that is very important when it comes to digital ownership and video games. The other game that I thought a lot about was World of Warcraft, because I played World of Warcraft for about 10 years. And World of Warcraft has all the same characteristics that video games or Web3 games want to have. So that's immersive digital worlds, marketplaces. World of Warcraft even had an auction house where you could just sell items crafted by players to other players. The other thing is that World of Warcraft and other games similar to it are really kind of proto-metaverses, right? Like they are that first version of what the metaverse is supposed to look like. So thinking about Web3, I would think about these two games and be like, well, wouldn't it be cool, right? Like Web3 gaming is gonna be like Pokemon and World of Warcraft, but in Web3. And that's because World of Warcraft promises the digital ownership, the ability to take your items from one game and use them in another, right? That is one of the things that do it. It also promises you to be able to take your items and take them with you wherever you want. So that, for example, if I was to buy a game, I would, instead of it being trapped in a marketplace, right? If I was to buy it in the Nintendo store, for giving an example, or in the Sony store, in the PlayStation store, I would be able to grab that game and then transfer it to a different platform. Of course, doing that in practice is a lot more difficult, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But that's the promise, that you'll be able to take your game from one platform to another without any issues. It also promises that you'll be able to lend your games to other players if you wanted to. It promises that you'll be able to rent them out as well, which is one of the features that Web3 enables. There is also the promise that you'll be able to resell your games. So back in the United States, we have a store or chains of stores. It's called GameStop. And GameStop's business model was to purchase new games and discs, sell them at full price, okay, and then buy them back from players so that they could sell them reused. And when they sold those reused games, they did not have to pay any royalties to the developers or the publishers. Instead, they kept all that money for themselves. And this was their business model. They were able to do this. When we have digital games, we really can't do that. Even if you purchased a game digitally and you finished it, what do you do with it? It just sits on your hard drive. You can't sell it to your best friend for 10 bucks, right? Or for 10 euro, or trade it for a different game, because it's just bits and pieces of information on a hard drive. So Web3 promises that you will be able to take those games and transfer them to someone else, sell it either for full price or for a discount. And it also promises that publishers, developers, will be able to receive royalties every time that their video games sell in the secondary market. So unlike GameStop, that every time that sold a used copy of, let's say, Assassin's Creed, they would keep the entire $50 that they would make out of that. If in the Web3 model, right, they were to sell that to a player, then a percentage would go back to Ubisoft, which is the publisher of the game. And right now, that's just not the way that it happens. So that's the first promise. The second promise that Web3 makes is interoperability. And this is a quote. It's kind of like too difficult for me to read from here, so I won't read it. But this is a quote from someone who's very excited about the idea of interoperability in games. And when you're a gamer and you have spent a lot of time playing something like Roblox or Fortnite, the idea that maybe you were able to purchase something on Fortnite and then use it on Minecraft, maybe that sounds really cool. Because then if I spend this money on one game and then I can use it in multiple games, I'm saving a lot of money. And that's what it sounds like. So the Web3 promises that we would be able to take our in-game items and transfer them to other games to use them there. Or that's the promise. So the last promise that I'm going to talk about is earning money while you play games. And I think that this is the biggest promise the Web3 games make. But beyond that, it's also the biggest attractor to Web3 gaming. Because, well, again, I played World of Warcraft for about 10 years. I have no idea how many hours that was. I don't want to know either. It was probably too many. But then when I decided to stop playing, I just stopped playing. There was nothing I could do about my characters that I spent hundreds of hours in, or the items that I grinded for and spent hundreds of hours in getting. They were just there in the game, in an account that, frankly, didn't even belong to me. It belongs to, well, Blizzard, Activision, or I don't even know who owns the rights to World of Warcraft anymore. But the point is that it was never mine. I was licensing it. I was borrowing it. And that makes me very sad. So the idea that Web3 promises, that maybe if I would to stop playing a game and then I can resell my items, maybe I can recoup, not feel so bad about all that time spent. The other thing is that I also spend a lot of time making items in game. So how cool would it be if I made those items and then I could sell them to other players, but instead of selling them for gold, I sell them for actual money, actual cash. That would be pretty cool too. Or if the gold that I receive from turning in quests would be gold that I could turn into real world money. All of those things went through my head, and not just my head, a lot of people's heads, because it is one of the biggest promises that Web3 gaming does, and because, thanks to blockchain technology and DeFi, or decentralized finance, which is a series of tools enabled by blockchain, we are able to create economies within video games that very much allow to make real money, or money that can be transferred out of the game and then turned into real-world money. So there are a lot of promises made. And I think that this is not working all of a sudden. The clicker is not clicking. The clicker is not clicking. Is it clicking? Okay, now it's clicking. Thank you. Okay, the game that made the biggest promise, or the game that seemed the most promising in all of this, was Axie Infinity, which maybe some of you here have heard of. And when I first heard about Axie Infinity, I was really excited, because there was a lot of people making money with Axie Infinity. And not only that, there's a bunch of stories about people from the Philippines, from Venezuela, and other countries that were really benefited from playing this game during the pandemic, because they couldn't go to work, they had no way of feeding their families, and suddenly this game allowed them to do that. And those stories were like headlines during, right after the pandemic or during the pandemic. And I, for one, talked about this a lot back then as the example of how play-to-earn games, which is what this business model is called, could be a really good thing. And it aligned with the promise. Or that's what it looked like, right, back in 2021. Now, the thing is that when it comes to digital ownership, first, when it comes to digital ownership of the games itself, the problem is that video game companies are in business of selling games. And when you purchase a game from Nintendo or from Microsoft or from Sony, there is really no incentive for them to allow you to play them anywhere else. Some games are licensed in a way that you can play them on PC, you can play them on Xbox, you can play them on PlayStation. Sure. But more often than not, their exclusive titles are exclusive for a reason. These companies, right, in the system that exists today, need to have exclusive content so that they have a competitive edge. If we were able to purchase and play all the games in all the consoles, then there would be no competition. They would all essentially be the same thing. So there is no incentive for companies to make their games themselves. There's no reason for the companies to make the games themselves something that you're able to just take with you, can plug and play anywhere you go. Same thing with reselling the games. Why would they want to let you do that? When right now, if you're gonna play something like, I don't know, let's say Skyrim, and you want to play it on PC, you buy it on PC. You download it from Steam, but then maybe you want to play it on PlayStation. Well, unfortunately, you're going to have to rebuy it so that you can play it on PlayStation, versus just being able to take the license with you from one to the other. Then when it comes to the items themselves, well, that's a little bit more complicated, because in-game items, when we think about the idea of selling and trading in-game items, it sounds great, right? Not just because it allows you to make money, but also because that way, if you have an item and you want to lend it to your friend because they're gonna do a raid and they don't have that powerful weapon yet, well, you can just lend it to them, they can use it and give it back. That sounds amazing. But the problem with that is that if these items are required, right, or will give you an advantage to reach the end of the game, then suddenly it becomes very unfair. And if there is anything that gamers really, really hate, are unfair games. Are when people can, what we call pay to win and purchase themselves some nice advantages over other players. So digital ownership at the end of the day is not nearly as simple as we think it is, even though it is very exciting to think about. Then with interoperability, we kind of have the same thing. There is no true incentive for companies to make items truly interoperable. Unless, and the only kind of like real example or use case that I can think of that makes sense is if you're doing like a marketing campaign and you want to market one of your new games in an existing platform. So you want to make, be able to make interoperable, so to attract gamers from one game to the other. That makes sense to me. Any other circumstance, it doesn't make business sense to do this. And the system that we have today, like I mentioned before, video game companies are competition. They compete with each other for players' time, for their attention, for resources. So as much as I love the idea of interoperability, it doesn't make business sense for game companies. And when it comes to the money, this is the part that hurts me the most. It really hurts my feelings. Because 3 years later, after the pandemic, if you go back and you look at the examples of games like Axie Infinity being the source of income for very poor families during the pandemic, if you've heard these news, then you will know that just a year later, in 2022, because this game's currencies are so susceptible to, they're so volatile, right, are very unstable, well, a lot of people lost a lot of money playing this game. So many of the stories that were very happy stories, unfortunately, turned the other side very, very quickly. And it breaks my heart that people out there thought that they found a solution to a very big problem, playing games and doing this type of thing, and ended up just losing. However, that being said, I kind of a lot of people really saw it coming, I wasn't one of them, at least not back then, to be completely honest with all of you. But a lot of people did see it coming. Because unless you have a regular influx of players coming into the game and playing the game with the intention of playing the game for fun, instead of extracting from the game, unless you have that, these games are unsustainable. This model is not sustainable. Because then it's like if you had a mine where you can go and mine gold, right? It's a finite resource. If you have a mine and you have 3 or 4 people just mining away, that gold will last a really long time. But if suddenly 5,000 people come in and mine out all the gold, then the mine is just gonna have no more gold. And that kind of applies to this type of games, because money needs to come from somewhere. And that somewhere, at least in the play to earn model, comes from people having to purchase an NFT to access the game. So in the case of Axie Infinity, if you wanted to play, you needed to own 3 Axies. And when I first discovered the game back in 2021, it was $50 per Axie. And I was not about to invest $150 just to play the game, just to see if the game interested me. Now, just 6 months later, each Axie was their price skyrocketed, which made it necessary, you needed $1,000 almost just to play the game. So it also made the game inaccessible for most people. And what started happening was that the people who could purchase the Axies, began lending them to other players, because Web3 allows us to do that, and taking some of the profits from other players. So that I own 3 axes, but I'm not playing the game. I don't have the time. So I'm going to lend them to other players. They have the time to play and need the money. So they go, they use my axes, and I keep a percentage of whatever they make. Some of the percentages that the axie owners were keeping were insane. Were like 60%. So you have these dynamics that were created in play-to-earn games that are, in my opinion, very dystopian. It's like these dynamics between people that just kind of left me speechless. So play-to-earn, or where money, real live money, is at stake in video games, things can turn like really murky really quickly. We need to be very careful with this because it sounds great. It sounds amazing. It sounds exciting, but when we actually apply it, weird things start happening. So what's next? So what do we do from here? I mean, Web3 has promised all these things, and at least in the last 3 years hasn't really delivered. Quite the opposite. So what I would say is we need to focus less on finance. Right now, the Web3 space is about finance. If you go to crypto Twitter, or if you go to the blogs, if you go and do any type of web-based research on Web3, you will see that the space at this moment in time is hyper-focused on finance and business. And even though necessary, I think that is a mistake at this point. Because we need to see blockchain technology and Web3 not as the answer to a problem that doesn't exist, but a tool that can be applied to create new, exciting things and possibilities. And actually, this book, well, yeah, it is a book. It's a compilation of essays. It was published just a few weeks ago. I haven't had the opportunity to read it yet, but it's from a group of engineers, designers, and artists writing about how to use this technology in favor of creating new interactive worlds. This is the type of thing that we need to be focusing on. Because otherwise, like I said, the technology becomes the answer to a problem that we don't have yet. So the other thing is, aside from changing perspectives, we need to learn from our past experiences. We need to see, because there's a ton of research done on this. Like, again, if you go and you do a little bit of research, you will see that there are universities and research centers all over the world looking at how these business models have worked, what have they done, how they're structured, and so on and so forth. So we already have so much information, so much data, and all of this data is also on the blockchain. And the blockchain is, well, public blockchains at least, are places where you can go and you can just access it. Okay, you can verify it, you can see it, you can use it. It's just there for grabs. So if you're interested in participating of Web3 development or in the Web3 gaming space, which I think is amazing, we need good developers, we need good people in the Web3 space, but there are a few things that I would say you need to keep in mind. The first thing is you need to understand the ideology of Web3. The Web3 ideology, from its origin, is not business-based. Okay? When the Web3 term was coined and we gave it a definition, this was back in 2014. It was Gavin Wood, co-founder of Ethereum, founder of Polkadot, 2 big blockchains, and very big foundations in the space, he defined Web3 as decentralized, full of trustless systems, where you didn't have to trust another human being to be able to transact in it. So if we want to arrive to that, we need to know why it is important for it to be that. Why it's important that Web3 is decentralized. So there is the history of Bitcoin, the history of Ethereum. It's very important to understand these things when you go into the space, because that will allow you to understand what's happening and what the direction is and what the bad actors are. Because bad actors are not going to be aligned with this type of ideology, or maybe they're not bad actors, but then they're not making Web3. They're making something else. And that's where the term Web 2.5 comes in, but that's a different story altogether. We need to understand the nature of Web3. So Web3 is experimental, okay? It's unregulated, and it can be very dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. So it's important to learn what a wallet is, how to navigate the decentralized space, and just understand what you're getting yourself into. Because if you don't, you're going to go into the space maybe as excited as I am about it, or even as excited as I was 3 years ago, and you're not going to be able to identify when you're being lied to, or you're not going to be able to identify where the scams are. And because Web3 is decentralized, is open, anyone, absolutely anyone can go and create their own cryptocurrency. That's why we have meme coins. Anyone can go and create a beautiful website and a marketing campaign and start selling NFTs without having a proper project. So before anything, understanding these two things, the ideology and just the space in general, is super important. One of the biggest lessons that I've been taught by Web3 is don't trust, verify. Transparency. If you're going to look for a job in a Web3 company, and they tell you these are our numbers, this is what we're doing, these are our transactions online, and you can't verify that yourself, that is a big red flag. Because public blockchains are transparent. You can verify all the information online. So if you're working with a company that has their project on something like Ethereum or even Solana, you can go and look at the transactional history and make sure that what they're telling you checks out. You can't do that. It requires a little bit of understanding what you're looking at, but you can do it. And if they're lying, red flag, get out. Don't even just run in the opposite direction. Community is everything. Because the ideology of Web3 is not from a business perspective, but from a decentralized perspective, community is incredibly important. People want to feel like their contribution to a project is just as important as the next person's. So if you want to build a Web3 project, you want to be part of a community, either join a community that already exists, or just create it yourself and grow together. Create relationships with major foundations is a great way of getting started. I would reach out to the Ethereum Foundation if you're interested in learning Solidity, which is the programming language that we use to create smart contracts on Ethereum. It's also the base for other programming languages that are used to create smart contracts. You can also learn Rust, which is another language. Or if you're just interested in making games for Web3, I would reach out to the Solana Foundation. Solana has a huge ecosystem of Web3 games, and they're constantly providing grants for Web3 companies creating these type of games. And then participate and organize game jams, hackathons. Just explore the technology. Use it. Go and experiment with it. Not with the intention of becoming the next Axie Infinity or the next Parallel or the next Illuvium or I don't know, any other Web3 game that already exists, but with the intention of experimenting what this technology can do for games, what this technology can do for enhancing the game experience for players, because that is where the real use case for this technology is in Web3. We just don't know what it is yet. And be mindful of the hype, because being in the Web3 space feels like being at the edge of technology, because you are creating the future of the web. That is what people say. Right now, Consensus, one of the largest Web3 conferences in the world, is happening in Austin, Texas. And I had the opportunity to go last year. And I guarantee you, everyone there is excited about being part of the space because it feels like you are creating the future. So it's very, very, very easy to get caught up on that and start ignoring red flags or start seeing things that are not really there. So stay grounded, beware of the hype, but always keep building. It's important. So thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. An absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you. If you have any questions, you can find me on the floor. I would absolutely love to answer any of them. If not, you can also, no longer there, but that's okay. You can find me on LinkedIn or send me an email, shirley@codexludi.com, and I'll be thrilled to be in contact with any of you. Thank you.
So we are ready for our next speaker. We have Vlad from Awara IT. He's the head of cybersecurity and infrastructure, and he will talk about cybersecurity for video games. Vlad, welcome to the stage.
Yeah, I will try. Hello, everybody. I guess you're all well known about cybersecurity, at least not about cybersecurity, but about security, because honestly, I was trying to get to that place for about half an hour, and all the security stuff given here prevented me to get in that particular place. But okay, today I will tell you a little bit about our offers connected with cybersecurity in conjunction with games. And just to understand who we are. Oops. My clicker doesn't work. Just a second. Oh. Yeah, I guess it's something should be here. So I don't see the screen, honestly, and we don't have any screen right here, but I will try to keep it up. So we are Awara IT. We are working as an international company, and honestly, our main focus is Microsoft technology. So we are trying to help our customers from digital industries to keep their money, to gain more, and to be more effective in terms of their business whenever they're working on. And here we would talk about particular topics which are connected with cybersecurity and with the gaming industry. I hope that clicker will work after that, and we will proceed further. No, it doesn't. Sorry for that mess. Okay. I guess I will do this way. So when we're talking about security and gaming, we are usually facing with three main directions. So first of all, it's financial risks and financial kind of things that needs to be taken into account when we are trying to build our game more secured and to prevent financial loss from different type of kind of unacceptable operations from different points of contacts. So we are talking here about product return when someone is buying some gaming equipment and then trying to return their own money, and this is in the same time they're keeping the equipment they just bought. We're talking about carding, about stealing credentials from the people, stolen phones, platform fraud, and stolen referral programs. All of that is the main case for companies who are providing gaming for people to get a huge financial losses and for bad guys to gain money and to get more powerful here. Then we are talking also about technical problems. So here the topics that can be discovered, it's currency and item duplications, like as they call it dupes, the bugs, the SQL injection, and DDoS attacks. And honestly, if we're talking especially about this kind of stuff, in many cases, it's not about something that are done by the bad guys, but honestly, many competitors of the game companies used to have this instrument to get competitive advantages against the people who are kind of getting those money in terms of market share. And also we are talking about informational risks. It's account selling, equipment selling, boosting selling, rating selling, and cheat selling. In the end, all of that makes the gaming industry less profitable and the bad guys who are owning money from that more powerful. So our goal here is to explain a little bit how we can help you to prevent those kind of activities and how to build the platform that allows you to create more secured games and to provide like the best level of security and protection during the whole life cycle of the game development, of the game provisioning, and during the kind of platform life cycle. So the first thing I would like to talk about is dynamic front protection, and honestly we are mostly focused on Microsoft products. So we either selling or working on Microsoft products, or we are working on our own products that we are developed ourselves, and I will talk about it a little bit later. Just a second. Yeah, the slide is here. So dynamic fraud protection, it's a huge platform built by like well-known vendor, and I guess it might be the third biggest digital platform of selling digital stuff, which is Microsoft Store. It's definitely like less useful than Android Store or Apple Store, but anyway, it's a huge business. And this platform is protected by Dynamics 365 fraud protection. So what that platform is about? So it allows to real-time fraud detection and monitor transactions from different people and prevent and block transactions which are unacceptable for the platform. It has advanced identity verifications that use machine learning to prevent account takeover and frauded account activities. It has behavior analysis, so it analyzes how the people interacting with the platform, and based on that, it's trying to find and prevent unusual activities from the bad guys. It also allows you to effectively prevent cheat and bot activities. And it allows you to get detailed reporting that can be very useful, especially when we are talking about different interactions with the legal and with courts, to have everything, like all the activities written for the potential investigation. So starting with development of application, development of game, we need to be sure that our application is secured enough. And for that particular topic, we have first technology that based on our own product that we are calling Kawara IT Scanner. So it's the product that has CACT like class, but I guess it's a little bit more affordable than other products that we have in the market. So here we have early detection and identification of security vulnerabilities in a product. We have automation testing, we have compliance assurance, and we are helping people to create more secured code, to find a way to make code more efficient and to close the biggest problems that the product has itself in early stages of development. So honestly, as I said, in the market, there are lots of products that are based and built for that particular reason, but I guess our own product, it's a good way to deal with that because it should be kind of cheaper than other products, and we have our own expertise during the building and application of that particular stuff. So the next thing is dynamic application security testing. So if in the previous slide we were talking about like a white box, when we have the system that knows everything about application and allows us to analyze application from inside, having all the access needed to find the ways to make application better. So that here in a static dynamic application security testing, it's a black box type of testing. So, and this is kind of something which is very familiar with operations that bad guys doing, trying to get access, unauthorized access to your application, to steal money, to steal equipment, and to steal data from the database. So it's end-to-end solution that allows you to provide security application support during the life cycle of application. And if you are not kind of satisfied with those two that I showed you before, there is another kind of level and kind of approach to the application development and testing. And unfortunately, we don't have our own product here, but we are using Microsoft MLS and Fortify application Defender. So this technology, interactive application security testing, gets full advantages of previous two technologies. And also, if we are talking about runtime application self-protection, it's something which is connected. I don't know, maybe you are familiar with that kind of systems that we are calling EDR, Extended Detection and Response. So it's something like that, but integrated into application itself. So it allows you to find application vulnerabilities and the problem within application during the working cycle and effectively prevent them with automated remediation. So we also have our own platform that might be useful for gaming industry that we are calling our Data Leak. It's a DLPD class product that helps you to identify all the possible leaks from your platform. So we're analyzing open web, we're analyzing dark web, all the possible sources to find the data that already leaked from your company. So this platform honestly helps you to understand what was the way the data leaked from the company, and also it allows you to understand what potential financial and legal risk you are going to facing with because of those data leakage, especially if you have some employees or customers that are covered by some pretty strict laws like GDPR. So these things might be super useful and helpful for you because, you know, sometimes the risk of data leaks and following against the procedures like GDPR might be super harmful to the company because the potential penalties are maybe kind of the price of company's capitalization. So just to understand what kind of people are working in our company and what kind of competences we have, here's the list. So we have pretty kind of powerful team that helps our customers to fight against bad guys. And these people are ready to help you with different kind of cybersecurity projects, including what we just talked about gaming development and the gaming platform protection. And the last but not least, here you can see all the competences of our company. And I especially mentioned two of them because all the things we talked about were about securing the platform of gaming. But in my point of view, it might be in many cases even more important to secure the organization itself, because first of all we need to build and support our own office or digital workplace to get it productive and get it secured. And for that we have a special practice that we're calling business productivity. Mainly, again, we are focusing on Microsoft products, and we have special programs to quickly adopt and deploy Microsoft 365 solutions. So it's a huge step for many companies to get much more convenient and productive environment for collaboration and communication. And at the same time, that particular platform and our other solutions that we are offering allows you to build that infrastructure not 100%, but pretty secured. Because the plus of Microsoft, that it's the biggest company that not just provides services for external customers, but they also utilize those services to protect their own infrastructure, to protect their own data centers. So with that said, I guess for most of the companies, especially if we are talking about gaming industry, where we don't have usually many people working for the company, it takes just several weeks to work with the company and to switch from current level of kind of services, application, and security available to the very high level of all the modern technologies available for every employees. And for sure, the main topic here, as you probably know, because GPT chat and AI things are on the very in every news. So Microsoft Copilot 365 and all the technologies around are also available from those solutions. So I guess that's it from my side. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Vlad, for that talk. What we are going to do right here, right now at the Game Summit stage is we're going to take about a 10-15 minute break before we come back with more talks. We have Boombit, who are going to talk about game design and how to select a good game. They're also going to have a separate talk about backend, and after that, a panel on game development in Azerbaijan. So take a 10-minute break, go grab a drink, go grab some food. We'll be back in about 10 minutes with more of Game Summit 2024. Thank you. And over here at the main stage, it is my pleasure to introduce Elida Chakal, who is the publishing lead at Boombit, and she's going to give us a talk about how to scale your mobile game, how to grow it, how to get more users, more platforms, more everything. Big round of applause for Elida Chakal. Good luck, have fun.
Wow, what a crowd, people. Thank you so much for attending. So let me start, at least while people are gathering up. So we may go I think I didn't also couldn't use this one. I'm starting, but I think it's not showing up. I think it's showing up here. Could you please take this to, beginning and also show it from here? It will be nice if people also show. Okay, I can't see, but you can see. Anyway, there are pictures at the beginning. They are mine. And let me talk about it myself. I'm 28 and I'm publishing team lead at the Boombit. It's okay then. So I'm looking at the wrong place, guys. I'm sorry. And I am like 28, as I said, and there are stickers on my laptop, and there are lots of on our booth. You may grab yours as well. So my life, basically drinking coffee, playing games, put the stickers on the computer, and traveling. This is my favorite things to do. On the other hand, it's my third year on Boombit, and I'm publishing lead there. And we are publishing amazing games, which you are interested with them. So it is your time to listen up for more. This is us, what Boombit does, actually. We are a huge, company. We are more than 350 people, and we are doing game developing. We are publishing our games, and we are doing industry investment. This is probably you may also get interested with. And we have like 14 years in the industry, and it's growing up with the experience. This is what we are doing exactly. So you may see user acquisition, creatives, playables, LTV optimization, porting games, QA, whatever you can think of regarding the game, we are doing it. So we can say we are doing a lot, actually. So let's jump in our main subject, if everyone is ready for that. So scaling games, what is the secret formula? So let me start my video. So these are the ingredients, people, you would like to use while you are preparing your game. So game design, marketing, monetization, which is important, data analysis, and strong partners to be able to do that, business intelligence, know-how, how to use these tools, and investment. Without it, basically nothing. So you need to properly use every ingredient as it should be. Otherwise, if you pull like more of them or less one of them, probably your recipe will be ruined, unfortunately. So to be able to not to do that, I am going to show you a timeline. Do not take this, please, as the secret recipe, because it is not at all. So to be able to, scale the game, first off, you need the prototype, and then you need the QA, and you need to prepare your marketing strategy, and then testing. The latest one is the most important one, because without testing, you cannot understand nothing. Maybe you can make the perfect game, in the industry, but without testing, you cannot say anything about it. So it is the most important thing, as I said, testing, and testing. Testing is the most powerful weapon for publishing. Without it, you will be blind, you don't know anything. So you need to, I have divided here into three. So first one is marketability test, which is basically the CPI test, cost per install. And usually there is not too much content here. You are just testing the idea. If the people like it, you are going to put more effort, and you are going forward. To be able to going forward, playtime and retention test. Again, there is not too much content here, but there are more from previous version, marketability test. We are measuring the enough player here. If we are going to get them, where they are coming from, we are just measuring, and we are going for monetization test. What does monetization test mean? You are implementing your ads, you are measuring the players, the play times, and your ads, I mean, it can be come from in-app purchases. I mean, it depends on your game. It can be come from interstitial. It changes also the design of your game, but the monetization should be there. Otherwise, how are you going to make money? To be able to prepare a good game. So you need a unique idea. You know, without this, it would be the same on the market, so nothing would be changed, and you cannot reach out to, exact success you are going to need. I mean, it is really hard to find a unique idea in the market. That's why you may give it a twist with a different approaches. It's also mean a unique idea. I mean, something has been done, yes, it's okay, but there is still spots that you may make a little changes on it. And marketability. I mean, if you can't put your game into the market, I mean, it would be, just staying a pretty doll, just staying on the, shelf. So it won't be also meaning nothing. An attractive and trending concept. To be able to get people's interest, to catch them, I mean, probably it would be most likely a trending topic to be able to, took their attention. And also a good game design. Without a game design, the most powerful idea, the brilliant idea could be yours, but without a good game design, you won't be able to scale it. And enough content and depth, of course. I mean, when people start, at the beginning, it's okay to not enough content, but when you go for scaling, you need to put enough content there because people would like to play and what they are going to play. They don't want to, do it or again and again. At some point, it will be boring. So at that point, you will lose it. And your prototype is ready. You can go for the market. However, of course, it also should be profitable. You are putting an effort, you are trying to do something good, but if it's not profitable, the game is not exactly the good game. So we need them all to be able to scale. Yep. For a good game, there is a nice chart here. I mean, if you would like to, follow all these steps, probably you are going to go for lunch. So marketing, this team, ads team, and BI team. So think that everyone is running a marathon at the same time, at the same rhythm. None of them is going forward or not staying behind. Everyone is just running at the same rhythm, at the same place. And when they're done, when marketing team preparing the creatives, this team would be able to start for the ads activation, and a BI team prepares your AppsFlyer pages, the ads team creates the waterfalls. I mean, everyone is doing something while marketing prepare your creatives. So when they're done, I mean, you may think that, yes, everything is done. The ads are activated, store is ready, BI checked everything. This team go to the, every network. Yes, they accepted our pages, so we can test. No, you can't. I mean, without the QA, when you go for directly, probably you are going to crash. While the QA team is checking everything, I mean, they are checking the playing, how to play. If there is a bug, they are just reporting to you. I mean, maybe your ad doesn't work. Without the QA, you may also not know that as well. So they are checking your ads. Everything is checking by this stage. Then you may go for testing, UA. And when the campaign is live and they are running, you are seeing the product and publishing team at the end. But actually, they are not at the end. They are just on top of it. But for the data analyst and checking everything, you are seeing there. I mean, at the final decision is belong to publishing and product teams. So this may make you a little bit confused. I mean, why I am seeing game design here. Yes, in order to make a good game, you need a good game design. But when you came there, game design would be there. You may think like game design, good game, 1 arrow. And again, game design, 1 arrow for marketing. Game design for 1 arrow for this team. for every step, you need to go back and check the game design. I mean, QA checked everything is working, and you prepared your campaigns. Again, they are running and they are totally okay. And so there are really perfect things in your hands. So you are checking your game design to be able to implement this, the other games as well. So it means that you did something right, you did something good, so you may use this. On the other side, you may also see the bad results from the UA campaigns. So it is the same thing again, going for the game design, checking your, faults. Where did you make the wrong, step? So you need to find that out, and you need to fix it, and you can go for testing again. So this is a never-ending process. Game design would be there. You made the game, it's there on the stores, like over the years. Game design team, still will be there to be able to implement more monetization or change it, or maybe some sub-levels or something. Game design, it's something like you never give up, you never forget. They will be there constantly. So let me talk about more marketing. We can also examine this stage in 3 steps, we can say. Your preparation for footage. You are going to prepare understandable and clean footage. Otherwise, with buggy and glitchy or something, nothing obvious in that footage, it is useless. People won't understand what the gameplay about or what are you going to tell them. So it will be a mess without clean gameplay. So you need to be very specific, very clean, and to the point. You need to use the killer moments, maybe the killer moments of your game for jumping from the cliff or something. Just use them at the beginning and hook the people. After that, probably your creative will be watching by the people, and it will be turned into the conversion. Make your creative plan. It is also important point. People are normally just jumping to the latest one. You need to prepare how many creative you are going to prepare and where are you going to test them. As Boombit, we have really nice, experience-based creative testing, which I cannot also share here, it's kind of secret. But you need to make your plan. I can also say that. It's free. Without a plan, it will be nothing. And what type of creative you are going to test? The playable is also creative. The statics counts as also the creative. The videos also count as creative. What are you going to do first? As the book, you need to prepare your videos first, and you need to start them testing on social first. Usually we are going to start with Meta. The Facebook and the TikTok comes after that, a little bit more later. So you are testing your videos. You are finding the winners, your killer moments. According to test results, you may understand what is your strong parts in this game, and you will be preparing for those moments a little bit more to be able to help the scale. After that, the statics for the ROAS campaigns and everything, you are going to use those moments from the videos. What are the beginnings? If the beginnings are the most working parts, or maybe at the ends, you may also check everything by the tools. You are preparing your statics and going for the campaigns with your strong side, not your weakest part. And for the playable, which is we are doing this internally as well, everything in homemade in Boombit. So your playable probably coming from your best creative. Usually this is a strategy that people are using, and we are also using this one. Your best creative hooks people up at the beginning, and they start to playing, probably they are going to convert your game more. So this team, networks, IDs, store controlling, everything is belong to this team. Ads team, waterfall setup, as I said, they are preparing everything. They are going every network like Mintegral, Unity, TikTok, Facebook. They are going there and they're activating your accounts. And they're also important for network communication. BI team adding the the MMP tools. In our case, we are using Apps Flyer. This is only from the outsider, which we are not doing inside yet. Then designing and operating all the data and the analytics coming from there. The QA team in details. As I said, I'm not going to go for the detail too much. Gameplay, ads, in-apps, everything you can related in the game. I mean, whatever you can imagine, it's all will be checking by the QA team. Otherwise, as I said, it will be crushed. UA team, UA strategy from concept to global launch. I mean, as you know, every successful game probably like tested 100 times before the launch. And UA team would be there for monitoring on the test and let the publishing team regarding the test if there's some anomaly on it. So they are really important. So publishing and product team, what they are doing. Actually, as I said, they are there at the beginning. Data observation, data analysis, and checking everything. I mean, from making the game a good game idea, preparing the market. All the stages that we talked about, publishing and product team there, and they are checking with every point regarding the game. So data observation is really important. We are doing this usually with UA team. And data analysis. Guys, data talks if you can listen. You know, without the data, you may not have to say that you may not understand your success. You need to read the data as it should be. I mean, to be able to interpret it, of course, the experience is a must. You need to read it to the exact way. But the data is not what I am thinking or what my experience is. The data is there, numbers are there. You just need to interpret everything in a proper way. And also, the other thing is that regarding the data, I mean, you cannot trust one source of it. I mean, there is one creative, let's say, and it has 5 cents CPI. I mean, as you can imagine, it's amazing, right? But you have like 50 users. Is it worthless? I mean, it means nothing. And on the other side, there's another creative, maybe we can say $1 for a CPI, but we have enough impression for it, people clicked, and most of them converted. This is the valuable one, you know, not the 5 cents one, because not enough users, not enough cohorted. So without it, also, it means nothing. I mean, you shouldn't get exciting. Yeah, I have like 5 cent CPIs with 50 people. So it will, I mean, at the scaling stages, it would be nothing. You always need more. I mean, when the CPI seems promising, you just going for the, yay, we nailed it. No, I mean, have you checked the RPU? Have you checked, enough cohorted? Have you checked your LTV? Are they enough for scale? The data, everything, while you are making the game along with the testing. So the final step, checking everything, the game design will be there like permanently. It's an infinite thing that would be stay there like the rest of the life. And monetization recommendations. You are making something good, okay, everything goes well, but how can you make more money from it? I mean, can you add more, for example, more ads, maybe more in-app purchases? You are checking everything here. Then you are going forward. I mean, yes, we scaled the game from now on. From which network? This is really based on experience thing. I mean, on our UA team, we are using Mintegral, Unity, Google Ads, Iron Source, Applowin, whatever you can think of. I mean, but when you start the campaign at the beginning, you just started one market test, like CPI test, then you just go for the ROAS campaign. After that, you created the Unity campaign. After that, you created the Mintegral one. So what are you going to do it with the, I mean, when you created everything at once, you are going to, you cannot follow everything. I mean, even if you can, you cannot make any sense because there is not enough content, there is not enough players, there is not enough cohorted, there is nothing enough to be there. I mean, that's why you need an experienced team to be able to create every campaign at the proper time. Other than that, it would be also waste of the money, waste of the investment, it will be a waste of everything, even your idea. And the other thing is exactly the same point again. Which platforms you are going to publish your game? Of course, everyone started with Google Play and iOS, which are the basic ones. But after that, Amazon, Crazy Games, Xiaomi, Azerbaijan, Poki, Nintendo, the Catapult and the Up to Down are on the way. They are also coming. I mean, there are different platforms that you may also publish your game and make money, but it also takes time. And there are also necessary some amount of users. They need also some spend from the other campaigns. You need to know what you should do to next. Actually, that is all from my side. And I will be on the booth and, with my colleague, which he will be here. He is the game legend. I highly recommend that to listen to him. If you have any questions to me before him, I will be appreciate to answer. I cannot see too much because of the light, but if someone would like to ask something, please raise your hand or just ask. I think no, right? Okay, then thank you very much for listening to me, and thank you very much for having us in here. I really loved Azerbaijan. Thank you for everything again. Thanks so much. Thank you. Let me give you two.
Oh, that ending went really fast.
Did it?
Okay, and then we are going for our next talk, also from the Boombit team. We're going to have a talk about game design and how to set up your game for success. As the speaker comes to the stage, I just want to let you know, after this, we're going to have a number more great talks, including a presentation from Exala about, well, everything Exala does, which is quite a lot of things. They focus on monetization, on creating opportunity. After that, we'll have a visit from the deputy minister. And then after that, there will be a panel on how to develop the games industry here in Azerbaijan. For now, welcome our next speaker, also from Boombit. Give him a round of applause.
Hello everyone, attention please. All developers who presents their game and who wants to earn next $1 million, please join this speech. Or let's start together. Hello guys, I'm Gökhan Kılcı from actually the Boombit and the Skyloft. What is actually Skyloft? Skyloft is a joint venture company, a partner company of Boombit. Boombit is actually, like I mentioned, we are based in Poland, but the Skyloft side, we started to merge our publishing side and the marketing side in Turkey, and we are working together. What we did till this time, and we actually launched many games, many titles, and we earned many dollars, everything. And it is for this speech, I just want to talk about the details of the creating a simple gameplay. By the way, thank you, Rami Ismail. He mentioned actually many different titles at his speech. So actually, I will continue on his speech a bit. I just want to start this. What makes a game successful? This is our number one rule. What is a successful game? For most of us, especially me, by the way, around 15 years ago, I always desired to make a good RPG, a good logic game, looks like Skyrim, Diablo, or the FPS game like the Counter-Strike. But then, yes, I started with that, and I also see that kind of the mistakes with all developers who started the gaming industry in the newly or in their university ages or started their own company as in this step. We generally thought that successful game means a game look like which we actually played in our own lives. So then, I am now, you can see the two different videos here. You can see the two different games. And, okay, different gameplays, but I just want to ask you, according to you, your own ideas, your own opinions, which game looks better for you? If you say the number 8, the boxing game, could you please show your hands? And for the number B, could you please show your hands? Only one people. Yes, I think I also probably vote for the number 1 because yes, it looks beautiful. But in the truth, it's not. The number B, Kiss in Public, is probably 100 times, maybe 1,000 times better than that boxing game because it is profitable. So actually, what makes a successful game? This is it. If your game, if your idea, if your design is not profitability, if it is not contains profitability, if it is not profitable, so it is not a successful game. So the thing is actually, compatible your KPIs. You know the KPIs, retention, playtime, the LTV site, your ROAS titles, your targets of the ROI. It generally depends on your publishers, investors, or your own capital. What do you want to see in that? Marketable, which Ilayda mentioned. What is actually the marketable game? And if you can add more contents in your game, if you just think, imagine a game you will continue to work on 3 years or 5 years. Do you want to stop your development time after 2 years or not? If you can continue to add content, if you can continue to add the live events, everything, yes, this everything makes a game into the dollars, profitability, and success. Yes, it is actually after the industry change. Now I don't know how. Do you know actually probably the changes because you are following the LinkedIn titles, the YouTube videos, everything on the Google site. So most of the people knows that mobile gaming industry is in their bad days. Industry changed, the capitals are changing, money is changing. So as a developers, we also must change our perspectives to design a game. So, how many of you remember the hyper-casual industry? You remember the hyper-casual industry? In the past 3 years, 4 years, the all hyper-casual games, we saw many games in the top charts is changed and the developers are really earned millions of the dollars that times. So probably know that balloon boomed and nowadays the hyper-casual games is not popular for now. And each publisher, investors, everything try to change their looking for in the gaming model for the business side. The most of the industry leads always told us hyper-casual is a subgenre. But actually it's not. It is just a monetization model. Hybrid casual nowadays is getting popular. It is just a monetization model. Casual, okay, it could be a subgenre, but no, it is just a monetization model. So, what actually the hyper casual, why it ended? Because it just started with the non-gamers. Think about your mothers, fathers, grandmas, everything. They don't know anything about the games. But while they are searching their social medias, they saw a game. Looks super simple. It looks super fun, and they downloaded it instantly because of the social media. And they used to how to playing games. And then they started to play casual games because they saw another ad in the game which they play. We generally call it them in-game ads. And they started to be a Candy Crush fan, Clash of Clans fan. That kind of the AAA titles fan. And now, what happened? Your mother's fathers is now gamers, and they started to spend money into the game. Once the non-gamers number increased more into the transformation after gamers, yes, hyper-casual ended. But hyper-thinking is a philosophy. So just use this philosophy in your games. You probably see many different games on the top charts, and probably you play most of them. Just focus on their gameplays. Super simple gameplays. This is Candy Crush. Only one touch. You can see one tap, one touch. This is it. Another game, another RPG game. You are just playing with the joystick. Nothing to do anything extra. It's attacking automatically. It's not tiring you. Another one are Boombit's top charted game Hunt Royale. Just look at it. You are moving your joystick, and your release, it's attacking automatically. What about the Supercell's new hit, Squad Busters? What is its gameplay? It is the same. You are moving your joystick, and the release attacking. This is simple, and yes, it is in the both number one, I think, on the both App Store and the Google Play. So the thing is, whatever, it doesn't matter it's subtitle, casual, midcore. It doesn't matter you are making a Steam game or something like that, or web platforms. Just keep your core simple, because it will like that. It should be tireless mechanics. It should be understandable. It should be easy. It should be super clear visuals, and the difficulty, it must start with very easy. In generally, we are all, as a game designers, we are always thinking about, no, this is super easy, no one will play it. No. Don't think this game is just for you. You are not developing games, designing games only for you. You are developing games for your audience, for your customers. So make some empathy for that. Start with easy, and after that I will also talk about this difficulty changes. So, nowadays you know the many popular quote for that, but just think inside the box. Because your core mechanic is everything. If you don't have a good core mechanic in your hands, whatever you do, you will lose money. You can add very detailed meta, you can add very fantastic elements, animations, everything. It doesn't help with you. We tried it many times. We lost many amounts of money to just making the tests. Believe me, if your core game mechanic is not enough, is not simple, it won't work. So, the fan theory. So, you developed a core mechanic in your hands. So, what should you do in the next steps? Just remember Tetris. This is it. Tetris did it. Now, probably you are playing the Tetris, right? Can you please show your hands who are still playing the Tetris? Why you are playing Tetris? This is super simple game, no arts, nothing. But yeah, just it has a good, simple core. Understandable, right? It is fun, right? You can generate many different contents as a developer view, and the customers and the players are continue to playing it. So, the 4 golden questions is here for your main gameplay, for your main core. Do you have the smooth core mechanic without good visuals? You can add the good visuals later. It's not important. You can show your game very polished. It's not important at this time. We are just focusing on the core gameplay. So, is it fun? Generally, to just actually make a game, it depends for the actual developer to developer. But we are skipping the fun phase. But fun is everything. Why do people playing a game? Why? Just for fun, right? So your core must be fun. This is the very simple, basic, the old school gaming theory, by the way. Is it the tireless controls? It's super important. Don't tire your players, don't tire your customers, because if you tire them much, they will probably churn, they will quit the playing game, and they will search for the tireless another mechanic on the market. The market has thousands of the games nowadays. And the objectives, are they clear? Let's again check. The clear objectives are important. But now, general mistakes. I saw many companies made $1 million are ready to spend on their projects. They are making a roadmap which contains 2 years. All the art sets, everything is ready. They started to development. And they believe their project. Why? How you can believe your project without any tests, without your seeing the customers or the players' opinions? In the console side, yeah, we just saw that. Cyberpunk. Probably all of you remember the big disaster of the Cyberpunk, right? Because they didn't make any open tests. They didn't ask the players, the customers' opinion first. But look at the Baldur's Gate 3. What did they do? They opened the open beta test in 2 years. Players start to play game, they start to share their feedbacks, and they create a great community with their the potential customers. And what happened then? Baldur's Gate 3 won all of the game awards of the last year. Yes, but what about the mobile version? Okay, guys, we generally doing in the mobile games. We must test it. We always believe that data is everything. You are not, you can't actually just plan without data the best game ever. You can, yes, create ideas, of course. You can twist some mechanics and you believe it, okay, it will work, you can believe it. But you must test. Without test, you will spend your money, your time, your work, your team's energy, and your desires for nothing. So it is actually a very, very basic system. Just make 20 levels with your core gameplay. Don't add any meta, don't add any sound, don't add any settings button, nothing. Just add, okay, complete, next level, or restart if there is a fail. Add your events. Implement them. Data analytics tool, it could be Google Analytics, Game Analytics, or other analytics. Just implement the event complete, or the fail, or the start event. Simple event, just implement that. Make all of levels, actually my advice is it should be all of the levels should be very easy. But I know you won't do this because I am also not following that rule. So just you can add the 5 levels average to see how the people react. Then you need to check your data. This is our 4 test results. In this, the upper side, you will see the churn amounts for each level. We cannot keep all of the users for each 20 level. It's impossible. Forget that. If you have something like that in your head, yes, probably you will more than $1 million or $10 million in your next development step. So it's impossible. You need to see that linear churns. If you are doing that, if your game's acting like that, yes, you have a good core mechanic in your hand, and we can start the actual development phases of the part 2. But if you have, especially in the level 1 and the level 2, shows us how your core gameplay is bad or good. If your churn ratios high like that, just try one more time. Add a simple tutorial, adjust difficulty, or add the rewards between the steps, and try again. If it is not work like that again, kill that project. Don't believe your core because it won't work. You will lose your money. Believe me, we tried it many times, and many times it's working like that. So, of course, yes, we talk about the core gameplay, mechanic, everything, but the other important point is also our art style. I'm sure there are many 3D artists or 2D artists in here. Maybe they are not listening to me, but it could be, yes. Art is one of the most important parts of our gameplay. But in general, as a game designers or the 3D artists, they always thinking about this is looking good. This is looking better than this. Yes, I can understand, but market is not talking like that. It should be fit with your core gameplay mechanic. So, yes, we may test this for a football game. It is the correct. I will share the results, by the way. All the results are the correct, and we tried the same gameplay.
This is the best football game in the world.
Oh, sorry guys. Sesi kısabilir miyiz abi? Okay, we tried the 3 different art styles with the exact gameplay, and we saw the results from our game. It's okay, right?
This is the best football
Okay.
game in the world.
The number 1 is the realistic art style.
The balls and move on. I cannot stop myself. Thanks to this game, I feel like a football manager.
Number 2 is semi-realistic art style.
Football game in the world.
Okay, number 3 is the cartoon style. You can see the exact, actually, the gameplay are the same with the 3 different art style. And here is the results. What the hyper-casual industry taught us, low CPI is the best, right? No, it's not. It is a big lie. The most profitable campaign is the best. Yes, you can see the creative one bring us the highest CPI, but it is day 7 ARPU is also the highest, and our profit is the best. So what we thought that it could be better to continue with that realistic art styles for our game. So okay, generally the developers are getting super happy. Yes, we have the 24/7 CPI, and yes, the game will be super profitable. No, it's not. Always choose the art style for your marketing, but also it should affect the in-game KPIs. So we need to just focus on the profit, nothing more than. So while we are getting to the bad part for everyone. So why people playing games? We will try to actually understand this behavior for the players, everything. So this is a simple question you can see for everywhere. What's your superpower? Have you got any superpower? Have you got, Umut? Have you got? Yeah, you are eating much, but it's not a superpower. Yeah, we know the answer actually. You don't have any superpower or something like that. You are just human. We are just human. So people are looking for their superpower in the alternative realms, like playing games, because we are giving them a power, something different to them, and they can achieve what they want in these alternative realms. But it is mostly for the console games, the Steam games or something like that, because you are playing the game in the big screens and you have some sound equipments, everything, but what about the mobile? Why the people are playing mobile games? Yes, the sad but true effects. People are lazy. They want the less effort and big rewards. For example, if we also asked in our office, the guys, do you want to make a football match? Let's arrange it. People said no, because it's tiring. But they prefer to playing FIFA or mobile football game. Because yes, we are lazy, we don't want to move much, but we want that rewards. And yes, in the people, we are generally unsuccessful in their lives. It's sorry, but it is true. It is that I am talking about your maybe lessons, your maybe your work life or something like that. But believe me, everyone has some unsuccessful moments in their life. So we want to achieve something, right? So this is why actually we want to that compete with someone and beat them. Yes, and the most we are making it in fake face. But just show them, yes, you are in a competition and you can do it for the people. Yes, we are worthless, yeah. The people are generally just thinking about their ex-girlfriends, ex-boyfriends, everything, or their financial problems or something like that. No one is, just our mothers and fathers are calling us, hey you baby, how are you? But we don't want that actually. Okay, we want that, but in general, we really want to feel like important, and the games are giving this to us. And yes, we are getting old. We want to feel young. This is why actually if you check the audience of all the players' ages are getting higher nowadays. Because people really want to think about, yes, they are young. We want to turn back that old good days. And yes, the most important thing, we stuck in our life circles. Work, home, child, wife or husband, work, think. Yes, it's boring. It doesn't give the most of the players as a progression or something like that. They want to be surprised. They want to see their life is going somewhere. So this is actually we must use that elements while designing our core. And actually, after we found our core gameplay is working, this is the mostly for the meta side. Surprise them, yeah, give them a big rewards. Give them big rewards, big rewards, big rewards. It doesn't important how big they are. Just give them a big rewards. Yeah, show interest in them. Just send notifications when they come back, give their daily rewards, everything. Then they will really feel, yes, I'm important for this game. And the easy first art later, yes. Let them get used to their game first. Look at there are many different samples for the dream match, the dream games game, the Candy Crush, everything. They are giving the easy gameplays till you use the game. Then they will start to ask some in-app purchases for you. And the customization, give them a customization. At least they can change their name or something like that. Hook them. Yes, the rewards is super important for here again. And yes, destroy the monotony. What we are doing in generally, we are using the same map, but we are just changing the color. It's affecting, yes, it's working. Because players are thinking, okay, this is something new. This map is different. Even God of War did that. Probably most of them played that, right? I'm not talking about the Ragnarok, by the way, but they added the enemies there. And while you are playing the game, you see the same enemies in different colors. Yes, we are also using that methodology in the mobile games. And okay, you added the great meta in your game, on your core, everything is going well. We added the events and the players start to turning back into your game. We increase the retention, playtime, everything's going well, but where is the money? I don't care retention or something like that if I am still poor, right? I need the money. This is actually the trick. Happiness is not free, sorry. We are also working on these games and we must get some profit. So the thing is, actually, yes, give them the, remember I talk about the difficulty side. Give them the easy progression. Yes, easy. Yes, I can feeling, I can achieve something. It's going well. It's going well. But suddenly, increase the difficulty to the hard. Let them to use their rewards into game to decrease the difficulty again, and they will understand that yes, that items are helping me to continue my progression. If this cycle repeats at least 5 times, believe me, they will start to buy in-app purchases or they start to subscribe your games. So this is in each game, everyone is using that, right? Free rewards, but multiply times with the battle pass. Yes, subscribe my game. Because you are important for us as a VIP member. You can go with your free rewards, but it will be hard for you. But if you pay me, it will be easier for you. Actually, this is the, it is everything in the only one screenshot. Yes, give them a free trial. Let them play your game, your game, and if they like your game, okay, the half of them probably churn, but half of them will start to pay for your game, and we will see at least in the day 16, we will see, yes, this game is going to profitable and we did something correct. So actually, thank you so much, by the way. If it is, have you got any answers or something like that? You can ask me here or you can ask me at the booth. Okay, you're photographing, okay. So, okay, thank you so much. By the way, this is the first time in our Baku, and it was a bit exciting for me. And thank you to invite us here. It's a great honor for us. And eyvallah, Can Azerbaijan. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're gonna get ready for the next speaker while our previous speaker figures out if he still has the clicker. No? No clicker? We'll figure out the clicker. There will be a clicker, hopefully, at some point. Somebody has the clicker. So we're gonna introduce the next speaker, which is, there it is. No, you're good, you're good. Raitis Johnson Jan from Exala, who is the strategic partnership person over at Exala. For those of you who don't know Exala, you probably do actually. If you've played any video games, any online games, any games with monetization, Exala is one of the largest partners globally for game studios that work in that space. Raitis has a fascinating talk from his position there, and he will talk to you for the next, I'm guessing, about 30 minutes on Exala's offerings and partnerships in the region. Raitis, welcome to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Baku, for welcoming us and welcoming Exala. I do believe we should have a presentation working shortly. My name is Raitis Joseph Jan. I serve as the Global Head of Strategic Partnerships at Exala, mostly focusing on a lot of initiatives with enterprise clients, governments, new initiatives around education and everything in between. I think we should have something set up shortly. I believe they're swapping out the presentation, so let's give them a second. I'll start off with a quick introduction, perhaps, of what Exala is. You can think of Exala as a global aggregator of payment service providers. So think of us as the infrastructure that powers video game commerce globally. We work across 200 different countries, across 700 different payment providers, supporting 130 different currencies. We work with over 4,500 game developers globally. So if you can think of some of the more popular names such as Roblox, Fortnite, even platforms like Twitch and Steam. And if you look at your credit card statements, if some of you have kids, it's very likely you'll see our name, Xsola, on there. So thank you very much for supporting us. At Xsola, our primary goal and vision is really to do two things, which is to enable game developers to go direct to consumer. And what does that mean? We have a solution of products that allow game developers to have a direct relationship with their end users and gamers. And ultimately, what we do is we enable them to monetize those users through microtransactions. So every time you make a purchase for a skin in-game or in-game currency or asset, we're the middleman between you, the consumer, and the game developer. And one of our key strengths in the industry is really this. As a game developer, ultimately, we want you to focus on building games and not necessarily on building the plumbing or the infrastructure that's necessary for you to operate and go to market. But we also want you to reach global markets and have a global audience. And the reason is simple. The larger the audience, the larger your geographical reach, means the more revenue for you as a game developer. And the way we do that is through one single integration, which is our core product called Xsola Pay Station. By integrating a single product solution, we allow game developers to go to a global market instead of having to negotiate with payment providers across the globe. We remove the complexities of taxation, data protection, regulation, and everything in between. So think of us as your back office. So that's sort of a short introduction on Xsola. I think as soon as the presentation is ready, I'd love to dive in and show you some of our core solutions and how we deliver. Yes. Okay, no problem. Thank you. How we deliver those solutions to game developers, how we empower game developers to reach those larger audiences, but also how we help the consumer and how we protect consumers when it comes to the data protection laws, making sure that they're compliant globally. If you look at GDPR and some of the new opportunities that we're bringing to game developers, especially with the Digital Market Act coming out in Europe and allowing for alternative app stores, how we're supporting game developers to increase their profit margins. Instead of having to pay these platforms 30% and 40% fees that they would normally do. Are we getting close, guys? Oh, are we there? Perfect. So Xsola is, okay, let's go back. So Xsola is a global video game commerce company. Let me just introduce to you maybe a short little video to show you what we're all about. So as the video says, Xsola is a global video game commerce company, but we're much more than that. We have been in business for over 18 years, originally started in 2005, with 13 global offices and growing, with ambitions, I believe, to open up a regional HQ here in Azerbaijan and Baku to help support. We employ over 800 different employees and help companies sell directly to users, like I said, increase payments, increase penetration, help with user retention, among other things. You may recognize, like I said, some of our global clients, Fortnite, Roblox, Sega, Epic Games, Steam. Every major brand that you can think of, every major game is our client and trusts Xsolla and works with Xsolla. Our model is one that is quite simple, but yet quite complex, I suppose, for individuals not within the industry. We're what you call a merchant of record, which means we have a direct license with game developers to sell products on their behalf and have a relationship with payment service providers. So, what? Oh, can we? Okay, something weird is happening here. No. We offload the complexities in terms when it comes to calculating and managing your tax, data protection, user privacy, and everything else that you can imagine that goes in the back office side of things. I'd like to focus today on Xsolla's 5 core key pillars and solutions, which is global payments, direct-to-consumer commerce, game delivery and distribution, user engagement, which is how do we help game developers not only engage more users, but monetize them at the same time. Using our partner network, using influencers, and then also funding. How do we help game developers fund and create exciting new games, connect them to the right investors, and make sure that new and exciting IP is constantly being released in the industry, which ultimately creates more jobs and opportunities. So Xsolla Payments. Think of Xsolla Payments simply as a streamlined payment solution platform that works across whether it's mobile, PC, laptop, or anywhere else. And I'm going to show you exactly how it works. So it's a pay station device. What this ultimately means for game developers is that game developers can access more users in different markets by providing those users alternative payment methods for those specific markets. So if you're selling games or digital items or currencies in Southeast Asia, you're probably using payment providers like Gcash. If you're doing it in Europe, you may be using payment providers like PayPal, Stripe, or credit card, or traditional payment providers. And if you go to Africa or the Middle East, you will likely end up using direct carrier billing. So for us, we simply enable in whatever way the end consumer wishes to pay for that product. We could just move to the next slide. If we could just go back for one slide, please. Thank you. Like I said before, more markets means more revenue for the game developer, which means also less hassle for the end consumer. So it's how you choose to pay, regardless of whether you want to pay in maybe certain cryptocurrencies that we support, or whether you want to pay in a local currency, or you have Gcash credit, you got gift cards. Any of those methods will work, and that ultimately means more revenue for our partners. Combined with Xsolla's world-class anti-fraud system, what we're able to achieve is 99% fraud protection for game developers. What that means is we're able to remove bad actors and chargebacks, which ultimately increases revenue. Our web shop solution is something that I'm really excited to share with you today. Web shops are white label digital storefronts. And what that means is if you think of platforms that charge 30 to 40% for mobile game developers and take a large chunk of their revenue, and in a complicated and aggressive market and an ever-changing market like today, it's becoming increasingly difficult for game developers to maintain, not only be profitable, but to also grow their revenues. And Xsolla helps them to do that through the web shop. So let me show you how that works exactly. And some of the best practices we've seen coming out of the use of the web shop technology is where you as a game developer, or as a mobile game developer in particular, are capable of increasing your profits by significant margins by either upselling the same products that you would sell in-app and encouraging the user to go to and purchase from the web shop, but to also provide additional value add. And so our strategy is quite simple. We wish to change how players think about playing and paying. So we believe that game is where you play and web is where you play. So we're trying to do the unthinkable, which is changing the way players go about and pay for in-game items, currencies, and digital goods. And we've able to achieve this with multiple partners, and I'll show you some exciting metrics and statistics on our next slide. No. We can go back one slide. So why the web shop? It's very simple. We've seen 30 to 40% capture rates coming in for customers and game developers that end up using our web shop, with up to 50% conversion rates and 60% repeated in-game purchases happening over and over again. Our clients like Tilting Point have seen up to 16% in incremental revenue growth. And what that ultimately translates to is instead of you paying 30 to 40% in platform fees, you're now paying the basic 5%, which is what Xsolla charges, plus credit card processing fees. Let's call it a 10%. You're making a 20% saving and cost reduction in transactions, which translates to more revenue. Ultimately, you're adding in tens of millions of dollars to the growth of your company and to the bottom line, which means more money, more resources to develop, to continue developing great games. Another exciting solution we're pioneering at Xsolla is cloud gaming. Gone are the days where you previously had to have expensive rigs and computers that cost thousands of dollars to buy, build, maintain, where every time a new console was coming out and you could only play maybe that game on that specific console. Crossplay is becoming more and more popular. And a way for game developers to really increase not only the total addressable market and increase the user base that they're targeting, and increase user retention is by simplifying and removing this friction. And the way we do it at Xsolla is by using innovative technologies like cloud streaming, where any high-quality game can be played directly from your browser. Let me show you exactly how it's done. Oh, go back. Please go back. No, back. Thank you. If we can play it. The real beauty and innovation coming out of cloud gaming, it's not the fact that you can just access gaming from any device, whether it's your mobile phone, your tablet, your computer that's secondhand. So long as you have an internet connection, you can play the same level high quality games that would require significantly more computational power and are inaccessible to a large portion of gamers out there. So if you can think of the gaming industry, 3.2 billion gamers globally, how many more gamers can we unlock using cloud gaming technology? How much more revenue can we drive to this industry? And how much more innovation can we do? The monetization model for this is extremely simple. It's pay as you go. So the cost to the end consumer is as little as 1 to 2 cents per minute of playtime. And for the game developer, what that results in is, again, a much larger total addressable market and an additional revenue stream and a distribution channel that they didn't previously have. Xsolla backend solution is something we're very excited to be launching later this year. What it does is it's a full live ops technical platform that allows game developers not only reduce access to market, reduce their operating costs and upfront development costs, but also, if I could get the next slide, allows them to do a number of things and features, including account management, quest management, virtual world deployment. Apologies. And manage their entire suite of functions and features that they would have otherwise had to spend possibly hundreds, if not millions, of dollars developing in-house. And then again, the saving comes in the sense that you do not need to maintain the software. The software comes free of charge. So one thing that Xsolla likes to give back to the community, and we're talking about a lot of these great solutions and products, is they're all free of charge. But simply by becoming an Xsolla client as a game developer, you get to unlock all these amazing solutions and products that otherwise would cost you in the tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars. We can move to the next slide, please. That's fine. Yeah, next, one more slide. Back. No, please go back a few slides. I think we've skipped quite a few. No, back. Apologies for the technical difficulties. No, I believe we're going too far back. There we go, perfect. Xsolla Mall is an online destination that we've recently launched that's specifically aimed for cloud mobile, PC, and other platforms. The opportunity here is to develop your own storefront solutions for game developers that sit within their own websites by leveraging influencers as a platform and using their user base to drive user acquisition through various different drops and claim mechanisms, or by rewarding a specific user action that increases user retention, reduces user churn rate, so your marketing dollars continue to go further, and above all, it's free of charge for our Xsolla customers. So instead of having to spend money to acquire users, we provide you with methods and new innovative solutions and ways by which you can gain users, allow them to play test your game, and the way we make money is by ensuring that you as a game developer are successful. Ultimately, the main benefits from a publisher perspective in terms of working with Xsolla are very simple. You don't have to worry about staying compliant, having to register with different tax countries or regions. We bring you more players, which ultimately leads to more revenue through a number of use of solutions and platforms that we offer. Increase higher user engagement and retention. And ultimately, we've been around for 18 years. There is no better partner to trust than Xsolla. We work with some of the largest names in the industry. They have been our clients for decades and will continue to be our clients for decades, hopefully. Xsolla Funding Club is something that may be relevant to a lot of the indie and mid-tier developers here in the room today with us. It's a curated matchmaking platform. Think of it as Tinder for video game developers and investors. Over the last number of years, we've managed to achieve something quite exciting. It's a place where investors and publishers can go and find exciting projects and exciting studios to work with. Over the last 2 years, we've managed to connect successfully over 100 games with investors or publishers. In our portfolio, we have over 250 investors and publishers, and each single month, out of the hundreds of submissions that come in, we curate 40 new titles and IPs that are looking for investment. Therefore, providing the industry much needed access to finance, funding, and expertise, and also mentorship to those early stage indies that perhaps have great ideas. At Xsolla, we do believe that great games can come from anywhere. And this brings me on to a project I'm extremely excited about, and that's called Xsolla Academy. It's a way for us to give back to the community that has given so much to us. Xsolla Academy is a space where we curate and train the next generation of video game developers and leaders in this industry. Through the number of programs, we work with governments, non-for-profits, industry professionals, publishers, and also other game developers to better understand what talent pools that they require, what expertise that they require, and build out our curriculums that match the industry needs. But also, excitingly enough, as part of this overall program, we've introduced 2 new elements. One is what we like to call an incubator. For those students coming out of our academy, coming out of our training programs, we have an incubation program that if they have that entrepreneurial spark. Perhaps they have an idea, but they don't know exactly where to start. They don't have the market research. They don't have an MVP product built yet. And perhaps they need a little bit of mentorship and help along the way. Our incubator program does exactly this. It's a 6-month program that helps young individuals or individuals who have pivoted completely from different industries and want to build their games and start their indie studios. We bring them from 0 to 1 to the point where they have a minimal viable product. They've built up their team. They know there is a need and a real market for that IP that they're developing. We provide them with access to funding by working again with governments. We also have our own venture investment funds where we do deploy capital. And those graduates coming out of the incubation program get access to our accelerator program. Our accelerator program is a 9-month intense training course where we get you investor ready. Coming out of the 9-month accelerator program, you will have industry experts that have built AAA titles and games, and they'll be with you for the next 3 years to guide you on your journey of not only launching the game, but how do you run a successful studio? Because as all of us know here today, it's not just a game you build to maintain a game, to maintain a community, to engage with the community. You need that insight that you, as a new developer coming into the industry, might not necessarily have. And let's be honest, everybody needs a friend every now and then. We have ambitions to bring Xsolla Academy here to Baku. And our ambition for Baku, and specifically our Azerbaijan, is to create it as a regional hub for video game development. What that means is by partnering with universities, government agencies, we are anticipating of producing over 10,000 game developers annually, funding over 200 different studios that will then export Azerbaijani-owned and made IP to a global audience and market, helping facilitate growth in this specific industry and economy. We had our inaugural launch in Malaysia, which was attended by the Crown Prince of Malaysia, as well as the Minister for Digital and our very own founder, Shir Agapitov. And I'd like to show you a quick video in terms of what it is we do at Xsolla outside of our core business to support the industry. And as we come to a close of my presentation, I would like to thank every one of you who's attended and listened to my presentation, but to also highlight that Xsolla, although is an aggregator of payment service providers, we really are what we like to see ourselves as an aggregator of opportunities for this specific industry. We like to help the little guys, the big guys, and everybody in between. And we believe by fostering an ecosystem and a culture where we allow each and every individual to succeed and foster, whether it comes to talent development, incubation of projects, providing access to funding for aspiring game developers and studios to develop the next Roblox, the next Fortnite, or either through supporting them with our existing tools and products and solutions. We're here to help. And as I'd like to say at Xsolla, let's enjoy the game. It's a very fun industry to be a part of. It's a very exciting time for all of us, I believe. If you have any questions, my team will be available around. I'm more than happy to interact with any of you, answer about our products and solutions, and whatever all the stuff might come up. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That was the final main talk of the program. However, we still have some incredible guests coming up. We do have, after this, a Deputy Minister of Culture showing up to give a talk about the games industry in Azerbaijan, followed by a panel with a number of the speakers from today about the Azerbaijani game developers in the games industry and the game developers community. I have been told that I kind of have to keep talking for a little bit until we can move on with the program. So for all of you game developers in the room, all of you that are making games, that are showing off games, that want to hear more about how games get made, please do come back to the stage at some point as the Deputy Minister will show up and give some remarks in a few minutes. For now, I think what we'll do is we'll get that all set up and we'll continue from there because I don't know what else I could talk to you about. I could talk a bit about game development. I could talk about making games, but I don't know how long I would have to talk. So again, if you are a game developer, you want to listen to the Deputy Minister of Culture speaking to you all about their hopes and excitement for the games industry in Azerbaijan, please do come to the stage in the next few minutes. And then in the meanwhile, I'll let you be for a few minutes as we set that up, and we'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining our panel. The panel will be run with Rami, Shirley, and Gökhan. They are professionals with years of experience in game development industry. Today we'll be talking about how we can bring the game development in Azerbaijan to the global level, grow it, and make it successful. Before we start, I really want to share a few bits of information about our industry, a few data points in a way, so that you can have a clearer view where we are in our journey. So right now, if we consider companies, game dev studios in Azerbaijan that have around 10,000 plus of revenue in total, there are like 6 total game dev studios in our country. If we consider smaller ones as well, there are 20 to 30 in total. In a year, we bring around $600,000 into Azerbaijani economy through game dev, and at least 2 government agencies currently are interested in improving the state of game dev in the country. So if we look into the year-over-year growth, it's at around 150%.
Wow.
And it's being as such for 4 to 5 years. So we are not like in a path where it's going through the roof, but we have consistent growth year over year. So yeah, considering years of experience you ladies and gents have, I would love to start with Rami. So pretty much, all of the studios in Azerbaijan are indie studios. And when you are developing a game, you're basically torn between making something that you really love and making something that will likely bring a lot of money.
Right.
How do you work in that dilemma?
Right, that's a very good question. First of all, that's some incredible data on the Azerbaijani games industry. Like you were saying, it's not through the roof, but consistent growth is a very important indicator for the success and future success of any industry. Like the through the roof part is when critical mass happens, right? So if you just keep going up, at some point it will hit that point where it really like blooms into something beautiful. When it comes to choosing between money and creativity, I think the important part is the games that you should be making are the games that do both, right? So if you start and you make games just because they'll make money, you won't make good games because they don't have a soul, right? But if you only make games with a soul and you don't care about the money, you only get to make one game because then you're out of money, right? So the way I think about this is similar to how I discussed in my talk in the morning. Every creative work needs a balance between goals and constraints. If you tell somebody draw anything, it's really hard. It's really hard to draw anything because it's anything, right? It could be everything. But if you say, okay, draw a car, that sounds much easier, right? Because now you have a box, you have like a constraint. So when it comes to money and games, I always say don't think of the money part as an obstacle or as a blocker or as a problem. Think of the money part as your constraints. Okay, we're a 4-person team with a few $1,000s. What can we build? Within that would be good, that would be interesting, that would be fun, that would be creative. So yes, it stops you from doing the big World of Warcraft, MMO, RPG, like big shooter game, Grand Theft Auto game that a lot of developers want to make when they're young. But instead it opens you up to make much better games with the constraints that you do have. And that's what creates opportunity. Because again, don't forget, when you make a game, if you successfully ship it, you'll sell it in US dollars. You'll sell it in the United States, you'll sell it in Canada, you'll sell it in Western Europe. The amount of money that can come into your studio is enormous. But only if you use your constraints in a healthy way. So to me, those are not opposites. They're not problems. They're the same thing. How do I make the best thing with what I have, with what I can? How do I make something that will make money so I can do it again?
So one of your most famous games is where you go fishing and then you throw the fish into the air and you start firing at them with machine guns.
Yes, ridiculous fishing. Yeah.
So how do you align that with what we just discussed? Was that more of a passion thing, or
No. Ridiculous Fishing was very much commercial game. So Ridiculous Fishing was built in 2012, 2013. And at the time, the big movement in mobile games was free to play. And so we had done the first version of Ridiculous Fishing as a Flash game for PC. And Flash was the websites where you could play online games. And we realized that those games had to be really short. They had to be snappy. People would play for 5 minutes in their school break, and then they'd be done. So we needed to make a game that was fast and snappy. But then when we were translating it to mobile, we realized people play very differently on mobile. Right? They want short sessions, but they also want to continue. They want to build up. And they want to have the sense of progression. So we looked at all the best mobile games, all the best free-to-play games. We copied everything from those games, but we didn't make it a free-to-play game. We made it a pre game, and you pay. Yeah, it's still there? It's still there. You pay $3.99, and then you have the game. But we have all these feedback loops from free-to-play games that people on mobile love. So for us, again, it was not the same thing. We looked at mobile. We looked at what works on mobile. What do people play on mobile? And then we took the idea we already had, and we fit it in there. So it was still something that we loved to make, but with the curiosity of how do we make this beautiful for mobile. And that had to do with monetization, of course. Like, my dad's Egyptian. I couldn't make a game that doesn't make money. He would laugh at me. So, like, you know, I had to make something that made money. It was the most successful game I've done financially, at least if you look at investment versus return. I think the investment in that game was less than $150,000 for people. It made several $1 million in the first year that it was out. So, you know, for 4 kids, that was life-changing money. And to be fair, to this day, Ridiculous Fishing from 2013 still makes money for me. I still pay my salary from that one mobile game from 2013, which is 11 years ago. Since then, I've made more games that earn me more money. And so with all these small stacks of income, I can pay for my salary. I can live my life. I can go make new games. I can invest in things. It all started with the one mobile game.
Cool. Do any of you want to add anything into that dilemma, or well, in a way, money versus passion thing?
I would love to know how that works in your studio, actually, over at Boombit, if you'd be up to talk about it.
Yeah, actually, the thing is that we need to separate. There is an industry. Okay, gaming is all about the passions. We grown up to playing the games, everything for the developers, artists, designers. They really want to create something as a game, as a players. Actually, I came from the playing games. Many people from our studio came here for the playing games. But we must know that it's also business. Business side is something different. There are many backend tools we need to recognize. We need to use the steps. We need to spend money there to earn more money. Nothing is just coming from the yeah, there is a good game. Okay, we are getting the organic installs and growing. There is no something like that. This is a business. This is a serious business. We must know the differences between our passion game. We really want to make games which maybe we desire to play it, but also we shouldn't forget that there is something, the serious business side, and we must continue to follow the steps while we are creating own games which must fit with our business perspective.
Cool. Shirley?
Yeah, I would just like to add that even though I completely agree, like developers, studios, designers will need to make money to make making games sustainable. I think there's also important to have spaces where designers, developers, artists can explore making games without having that pressure. So having game jams where students, but also professional developers can go and be mentors and create games that are more based on even the regional culture. So games that otherwise would not be made, that contain that essence that only Azerbaijan could make into a video game, that maybe are not initially viable for a commercial video game, but maybe they can be born out of a game jam, and then they can be turned into something bigger, and then it's something that the community here can put up into the world to represent the country and the culture.
Thanks a lot for your input. As the second question, I really want to dive into the direction of, like, the game dev in Azerbaijan is just starting up. We are at our first steps, and well, each of you are from a different country, like Turkey, Puerto Rico, and Netherlands. I'm not sure if you saw the starting phases of game dev in your country, but I'm sure well, as you've spent years and years in that industry, you know where it was when you started. Can you kind of look back into those moments and tell us what we can use from experience of your country in where we are right now?
Yeah, sure. Well, the situation or the context in Puerto Rico is very different than what you have here, but certainly the industry over there started about 10 to 15 years ago with just a few colleagues starting to create their games. In Puerto Rico, we have the peculiarity that because even though we are a U.S. territory and we are U.S. citizens, we are those things, even though we're not like a state properly, right? But we do get to have a citizenship and therefore can move to the mainland. So what happens a lot is that our best talent, because there are no opportunities on the island, they leave. And 10, 15 years ago, when video game development was a thing that you could go to university for, our biggest talents graduated high school, maybe did graphic design at university, and then they left to the mainland. So most of our oldest talent or our biggest talent left the island really early. That being said, it's also happened that now that they have really high positions in companies all over the world, talking about Ubisoft, Bungie, Microsoft, Nintendo, Niantic. We have Puerto Ricans are everywhere. Now, those people who had to leave the island to pursue their dreams, they are now reaching out to help the industry. So that they have been our biggest helpers in this. They have been our biggest supporters in trying to create a growing industry on the island. So for people who have left, like, I think that there's a lot of pride in if you've had to leave your country because maybe you couldn't pursue your dreams there, in looking back and being able to help back home. And I think that has been definitely the biggest lesson that we have learned.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, in the Netherlands, the games industry is quite advanced, but it started in a very similar place to what Shirley describes, just a few people. I think for me, what's interesting, I visit a lot of countries around the world where the games industry is young. So my work also is in working with governments, with industry associations, with the Game Developers Association. And so I once created this model of community growth, game developer community growth, and I divided it into 5 stages. So in stage 1, there's game developers, but they don't know each other. And in the second stage, the developers know each other, and maybe they bring people from abroad into the country to talk to them. And then in the third stage, there are people from in the country that go abroad. And then in the fourth stage, there is what I like to call a hero. And the hero is a developer who makes a game that is super successful, that is commercially successful, that is critically successful, that when people talk about the game, they say, this is a game from Azerbaijan.
So
Right.
that's the success story.
The big success story. There always has to be a big success story because that is the person who connects the local games industry to the international games industry. And so up until stage 4, the problem with games industries is that very often they're just chasing success. They're looking at data, but they're not understanding the data because nobody has ever seen what a success looks like, right? They talk to each other about what makes a good game, but none of them has ever made a good game, right? So as soon as somebody succeeds, they make those connections with big conferences, with Exala, with companies abroad. That's when something shifts. And so everybody wants to be as successful as the hero. But the hero has one advantage, they're already successful. So for stage 5, what happens is everybody tries to be the hero and fails because there already is the hero, and then everybody decides to do something different. And that's where real game development happens, is when everybody decides we're going to do our own thing. So people ask me, we're in Azerbaijan. How do we make the next Grand Theft Auto? How do we make the next Red Dead Redemption? How do we make the next Candy Crush? And the answer is you don't. You don't, because Grand Theft Auto is a game about the United States, made by people from Western culture. They understand that culture better than anybody else, right? And you can't beat an Assassin's Creed because Assassin's Creed is a French-made game that is very French in how it's made, right? If you want to make games that are successful, that stand out, you should look at countries like Indonesia or Uruguay or India. Look at those countries and see that the most successful games from those countries are games that take something, like Shirley said, from their own culture. Something that is so personal, so true to them, that nobody can do better than them. Because they're the only ones who truly understand it. That's how you make standout games. So I'm not saying make Azerbaijani Candy Crush. But what I'm saying is look into your history, look into your music, look into your language, look into how people play. What games did you play as a kid? Because in the Arab world, I'm half Egyptian, in the Arab world, there's a company that just makes Arab card games. They just make card games that only the Arabs play, and they have millions and millions of users only in the Arab world. And nobody outside the Arab world knows these games. But there, everybody knows them. And they make millions of dollars. And now they're making their first big game, their first own game, their first non-card game. But that's how you need to think about this. You have easy access to what people love here, right? To this region. Use that advantage because everybody else wants to. The big companies in the US, in Europe, they're all looking at the region and going, okay, how can we grow? How can we reach this audience? But the reality is you already can. So use that in your advantage. Build games that are true to you and then look at the data, then optimize, then monetize, then grow, then expand, then do all those things. But don't start trying to build something that isn't yours.
Yeah, another stat point from Newzoo is that that's from 2021 or 2022. Yearly expense on gaming in Azerbaijan is around $86 million.
$86 million.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's very unexpected for all of us because we thought no one is spending any money on games because, yeah, there are pirated sources and stuff. But yeah, it's not like that.
I mean, that shows, again, there is an addressable market size of $86 million just here. Just here. If you only focus on Azerbaijan, you could get up to $86 million in revenue, right? You target Azerbaijan with Azerbaijani culture, history, art, music. You have an opportunity. You can do that. You don't have to aim for you know, like the big international markets because it's hard to compete with them. They already know how the market works. They already have access. And I think, I remember in early development in Turkey, it was very similar. Like people were trying to figure out what can we make that is ours, right? That is true. And they found that they're very good at certain things that just fit the way they play games better. Like Turkey has had a very good mobile industry. And to a degree, that's because everybody in Turkey very early had mobile phones. This was just how computers evolved in Turkey far more mobile focused than in, for example, the Netherlands, where mobile phones were actually kind of late because everybody already had a computer and email and all that stuff. That was our thing. So mobile phones came out, everybody was like, yeah, why do we need them, right? So every country has its own strengths. I'd love to know, what do you think, based on what you've seen, what do you think the strengths of the Azerbaijani game development is?
So we don't yet have anything close to a success story. There aren't very many. Well, there are no AAA productions. There is pretty much no finished AA production in Azerbaijan. There are only a handful of projects that have managed to release on Steam on commercial basis. One of the good things about Azerbaijan industry is that we have very competitive salaries when compared to West. So we are able to provide, for example, we as a company, we provided service to a number of clients across the world. We have done 100+ projects for clients across the globe. And that kind of allows us to get a lot of experience by doing work for others. And we are learning by doing mistakes while we work for others. And that enables us to build a lot of things that we can reuse in whatever we will be building for ourselves. And that applies to a lot of companies in Azerbaijan because they already have all of that experience built out that they can, well, experience and systems that they can use to build out whatever. Well, one of the issues with what we are doing is that I guess it's applicable to all in these studios. We have scope creep, and whatever small thing you are trying to make grows bigger and bigger. But yeah, there is that minor advantage that we have experience that we can use to build out something great.
Isn't that similar to what happened in Turkey to some degree? There was a very large B2B industry and then it sort of started shifting to creative development later?
Actually, yeah, the Turkey is... I want to actually talk about something different. Why the Turkey has good developers or the artists or the people in the gaming industry. The first of the things is we all grow up with the family pressure. Maybe probably same in the Egypt.
Yeah.
Don't play that game. What are you doing? Get to go to find a serious job for yourself. You can't earn money with playing games or something like that. So that's actually fired something in our youth. And after especially, yes, we had the Tailverse, Peak Games, Gram Games, that kind of the good companies. But after the Hyper Casual arrived, I really remember that scene. We just talked with the Voodoo at the same time and the Lion Studios. They asked me money to develop a game for them. And the money for the prototype, $2,000 for one game. Oh my God, are you serious? Can I send you 10 or 20 games per month? Yes, you can. And then what happened? In the universities started to create hubs. Everyone, oh, okay, you can make great money if you develop games. And the gaming industry actually real born there. Yes, money and money. Money actually fired that thing. Yes, mother, I will earn money. I will maybe buy you a new home with not playing games, but developing games.
Yeah.
That affected too much. And then I remember that scene for my own company. I was hiring people. Do you know Open Blender on your computer? Yes, okay, I hired you. Do you know just scripting in C#, Hello World? Okay, I'm hiring you, I can educate you. And the actual ecosystem started like that. But the companies, the big companies that show that, okay, there is a light in Turkey, but they spent tons of money to collect data, collect know-how. So for Azerbaijan, if you want to go really increase the gaming ecosystem power, you must spend money and you can create your own know-how, own data, everything.
I guess we are running out of time.
Yeah, I think one good question to sort of wrap up with is probably like if you are looking for all of us, I guess, if you are looking at the Azerbaijani games ecosystem, like what would be the next step, right? What do we think should happen next, like based on what we've played, what we've seen, with what we've heard? We'll start with you, just like in 30 seconds, like what would you hope to see if you came back next year? and you were at Game Summit 2025, what would you hope?
Well, I believe that we will see one or two really big games. Actually, I'm meaning the profitable, maybe in the top charts and the famous games. I'm sure we will see next year one or two games developed in Azerbaijan. I believe that.
Well, I would love to see, of course, more games being published from the region, from over here. Really, I also think that it's really worth investing in spaces and activities that bring, developers together throughout the year, so that I don't know if you have maybe meetups or things that you do monthly or every trimester, where the industry or the developers that you have, the companies that you have, really get to understand what is happening, what everyone's doing, so that you can grow together.
Yeah, I think for me, like the thing that I'm really loving that I'm seeing is just the sense of community among the developers. Like they all talk to each other, they all are playing each other's game, they're giving each other feedback, they're getting to know each other and staying in touch. I think the best way to grow as any gaming ecosystem is you work together. You work together, you learn from each other, you learn from each other's mistakes, you share each other's successes, each other's contacts, you share, right? And that's what I'm seeing, so that makes me very excited for next year. Similarly, I would love to see some hit games from Azerbaijan. I would love to see this growth in the way people like communicate and talk, and I am very hopeful for what I'll see next here in Azerbaijan.
Thanks a lot for all of your input. Looking forward to seeing you all in the upcoming year in 2025.
Thanks so much.
Of course, thank you.